The listing was already live at $480,000 cash only when my daughter-in-law smiled across my kitchen table and said, "He's too old to notice." By noon, she had my cabin online. By supper, she had called Ruth's porch swing dead space. By morning, her father expected that sale to cover $312,000 he had buried in a bad equipment deal. My son looked at his phone and let it happen. I checked the parcel line, saw the wrong doc, wrote down the listing ID, and opened the hall closet. The green metal box was still there. Then I made one phone call. But before that phone call, let me take you back to that Tuesday in Miller's Bend. My name is Walter Harlan. I am 70 years old. I don't get loud. I get exact. That habit fed my family for 42 years. I poured foundations around Muskingum County. Basements, footings, retaining walls, grain bins, little strip malls, church additions. If concrete was involved, I probably had boots in it. I could read a property file like blueprints. Most folks see paper. I see load paths. I see what carries weight. I see what cracks first. That morning, Marissa Harlan sat at my kitchen table with a white laptop open. My son Evan sat beside her. He kept both hands around his coffee mug. Dennis Vale stood near the sink. That was Marissa's father. He wore a golf shirt in February and smiled like every room belonged to him. My kitchen looked over Maple Street, not the bank side, the other end, past Jenkins Hardware. Ruth used to say it was the last honest block in town. Ruth Harlan was my wife for 47 years. She had been gone 3 years that March. Her blue sweater still hung on the peg by the back door. I had not moved it. Marissa glanced at it once. Then she looked away. "Walter," she said, "we need to talk about the cabin." Evan's jaw moved, but no words came. I set down my toast. "What about it?" Marissa turned the laptop toward me. There it was. My cabin on Briarhook Road, the cabin I built above Dillon Lake, the cabin Ruth named after no one because she said a place should earn its own name. The price was $480,000. Cash only, quick close preferred. The first photo showed the porch. Ruth's swing hung from the beam. Blue paint, brass chain. I had replaced that chain myself after one link started to twist. The second photo showed a dock down near the water. That dock was not ours. I looked at the listing IDMB-44719. I wrote it on the back of my electric bill. Marissa watched my hand. "You don't have to worry," she said. "Evan and I are handling everything." "Everything," I said. Dennis laughed softly. "That's the spirit. Let the young folks move." Evan stared at the little steam rising off his coffee. I moved the laptop closer. The parcel map was wrong, not a little wrong. It carried the line over the old county access strip. It pulled in 26 feet of shoreline that never belonged to the cabin lot. I had seen that mistake once before, in an appraisal package from 9 years earlier. That caught my eye. "Who took these pictures?" I asked. Marissa tucked her hair behind her ear. "The agent handled it." "What agent?" "Paula Greer," she said. "She knows lake property." I knew Paula. She sold lake property. She also knew enough not to list a parcel without a signed seller disclosure. "Who signed the listing agreement?" I asked. Evan finally looked up. "Dad, can we not do this like an interrogation?" I looked at him for a second. He was 38 years old. He had my hands and Ruth's eyes. He also had a wife who answered before he did. "It's family property," Marissa said. "Evan has a right to move it forward." "Move it forward," I said. She smiled harder. "His startup needs runway. Columbus investors are waiting. We can't let emotion lock up dead space." Dead space. That was the first word that settled into me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a cold mark on the wall. Ruth had planted lilies by that porch. She had sat on that swing after her treatments. She had wrapped Christmas presents at that table. Marissa had eaten there 6 times and called it dead space. Dennis lifted both palms. "Walter, nobody's dishonoring Ruth. She was practical. She'd want the young people to build something real." Something real. I looked at my son. He looked down again. "Evan," I said, "is that what you think?" His throat moved. "It's just sitting there, Dad." "No," I said. "It's standing there." Marissa closed the laptop halfway. "That's exactly the problem. You keep treating buildings like they're people." I took my coffee to the sink. My hand was steady. That surprised Dennis, I think. You listed it without talking to me, I said. We tried, Marissa said. No, you mentioned selling it at Christmas. Ruth's sister was in the room. I said no. You said not now. I said no. Dennis made a small sound with his teeth. You see, this is what worries us. I turned back. What worries you? Marissa laid her hand on Evan's forearm. He did not move it. You've been forgetting things, she said. There it was, not loud, not dramatic, just the first nail. Like what? She glanced at Dennis. The stove last month, she said. I turned the burner off. After Evan called you. After Evan called to ask about his old fishing rods. Dennis stepped in. Nobody's accusing you of anything. We're just saying stress can affect judgment. Judgment. I had heard men use that tone on job sites, usually right before they tried to hide bad gravel under a slab. Marissa opened the laptop again and tapped the screen. The cabin needs to serve the living. Evan's company can turn this into real jobs. What company? Evan shifted in his chair. Harlan Field Systems, he said. I knew the name. I had paid $18,000 for the first software prototype. I had paid $7,500 for the Columbus pitch coach. I had paid $4,200 for legal filing fees. I had paid $11,600 for 6 months of rent on a little office near Grandview. I had not called any of that dead space. What does the startup need today? I asked. Evan looked at Marissa. She answered, bridge funding. How much? Dennis coughed once. Enough to keep momentum, Marissa said. How much? Evan whispered it. 200,000. Dennis's eyes moved to him. Marissa smiled through it. That's the immediate need. Immediate need usually means the whole wall is leaning. I nodded. And the cabin sale gives you that? It gives us options, Marissa said. At $480,000 cash only. That's a strong price, Dennis said. Lake buyers move fast. Clean title moves fast, I said. The kitchen went quiet. Marissa's face stayed bright, but her fingers stopped moving. I drank my coffee. Clean title was not a fancy phrase. It was just a door with a lock. Some people hated locks when they did not have the key. Evan pushed his chair back. Dad, please don't make this ugly. I looked at him. That one landed. I haven't made anything, I said. Marissa shut the laptop. We came here out of respect. No, I said. You came here after you listed it. Dennis checked his watch. Walter, the buyer is serious. Cash proof is already in. We just need cooperation. What buyer? Marissa stood. You'll have the paperwork. From who? The agent, she said. Not the owner? Her mouth tightened. Evan rubbed his forehead. Dad, I can't do another fight. That was my son's trouble. He thought a hard question was a fight. Marissa had trained him that way. Dennis had polished it. I walked to the hall closet. I did not open it wide. Just enough. Behind winter coats and Ruth's old umbrella sat a green metal box. Army green, scratched handle. I had bought it at an estate sale for $6. Marissa leaned sideways. What's that? Old papers, I said. Her eyes stayed on the closet. Dennis saw her looking. He saw me see her looking. That was enough for that morning. I closed the closet door. I'll take a drive, I said. To where? Evan asked. The cabin. Marissa's voice sharpened. That's not necessary. Then it won't hurt. I got my coat from the hook, not Ruth's sweater, mine, brown canvas, concrete dust still lived in the seams. Evan stood too. Dad, wait. I waited. He looked at Marissa, then Dennis, then me. I need this, he said. He said it like a boy asking for a loaner truck. I wanted to ask him when need became permission. I did not. A father has only so many words before they turn to begging. I heard you, I said. He nodded, grateful for a thing I had not given. Marissa walked to the door with me. One more thing, she said. Please don't call Paula and confuse the process. Confuse. There was the second word. Confused. Dead space. Judgment. Cooperation. You stack words like that long enough, and you get a wall. I had built enough walls to know when one was meant to keep me out. I drove my old Ford down Maple Street. Buckeye Heritage Bank sat on the corner, brick front and brass letters. Russell Keene's office window faced the traffic light. Russell had handled my construction lines for 20 years. He knew every renewal. He knew every tax escrow. He knew Ruth brought him peanut brittle each December. I did not stop there yet. I took Route 146 out toward Dillon Lake. The road dipped past the feed store, then the old volunteer firehouse. Briar Hook Road came up narrow and patched. I knew every break in that pavement. I had hauled lumber on that road in 1998. I had been 52 then. Ruth had been 49. We were not rich in the way people mean it now. We were tired, solvent, and stubborn. I had just finished the footing contract for the junior high edition. That job cleared $86,400 after payroll and fuel. Ruth said we should do one thing for ourselves before another decade got away from us. So I bought the lot above Dillon Lake for $74,000. Not lakefront, Lakeview. There is a difference, and it matters on paper. We borrowed $132,000 to build. I used my crew on weekends and paid them full rate. No favors, no shortcuts. The final cost came to $189,300 because good windows cost money, and Ruth wanted the porch deeper. The cabin appraised at $515,000 9 years later. Ruth never cared about that number. She cared that the porch faced the evening light. I turned onto the gravel drive. The listing sign was already there. That made me sit still. Paula Greer's red sign stood near the cedar post I had set myself. A rider beneath it said cash only. I left the engine running for a moment, then I got out. The cabin had gray siding, green trim, and a roof I replaced for $28,750 after a hailstorm. The gutters were clean. The porch boards were solid. I had sealed them in October. Ruth's swing moved a little in the wind. I walked up the steps and touched the chain, cold brass. Smooth where her hand used to hold it. A lockbox hung on the door handle. That was new. I took out my phone and photographed it. Then the sign. Then the rider. Then the boundary stakes that were not mine. Somebody had put orange tape near the path down to the county dock. That made the wrong dock photo worse. It was not ignorance. It was a sales pitch. I walked around back. The crawl space vent was shut. The propane tank read 62%. The meter had turned because I kept heat at 52 degrees all winter. My money had kept that place breathing. The taxes that year were $7,840. Insurance was $2,116. Monthly bank draft was $1,926. I had paid all of it, every month, from my account. After Ruth died, I kept paying because promises do not end when one person leaves the table. I pulled a small notebook from my coat, listing ID, wrong dock, orange tape, lockbox, cash only, no seller notice. Then I wrote one phrase, permitted occupant. I looked at those two words for a long time. Evan had lived there for 11 months after college. That was years back before Marissa. Ruth had insisted he have quiet while he got his feet under him. We put it in writing because I believe paper kept love from becoming confusion. Permitted occupant, not owner, not borrower, not trustee, just permitted occupant. I put the notebook away before I let myself feel anything. Inside, the cabin smelled like pine boards and shut-up heat. Not fancy, clean. The table by the window still had the little burn mark from Ruth's jam pan. She laughed about that burn for years, said it proved the table had lived. The listing photos had hidden that mark. They had moved the quilt too. Ruth's blue and white quilt was gone from the back of the couch. I checked the bedroom closet, empty. Then the trunk under the window, also empty. That quilt had cost nothing and everything. Ruth made it from old shirts, mine, Evan's, her father's, pieces of work and family stitched together. Marissa had taken it out of the photos. Maybe she thought buyers liked clean lines. Maybe she thought memory lowered the price. I stood there with my hand on the trunk lid. I could hear my own breathing. I could also hear Ruth in my head telling me not to stand in a cold cabin with my coat open, so I zipped it. Then I looked at the kitchen counter. A folder sat there, cream-colored, real estate forms. Paula Greer's card clipped to the front. I did not take it. I photographed the cover and the visible first page. Seller name was typed as Evan Harlan. I read it twice, Evan Harlan. My son had not corrected it, or he had not read it. Neither answer helped him. I locked the cabin when I left. I did not have the lockbox code. I still had my key. That mattered too. Back in town, I stopped at Jenkins Hardware. I bought 2 furnace filters and a blue paint chip Ruth had liked years ago. The clerk, Molly, rang it up for $42.18. You repainting the lake place? She asked. Thinking about it. Heard it was listed. Small towns do not need wires. They have mouths. Who told you? She looked embarrassed. Marissa posted it. Said big things were coming for the family. I nodded. What else did she say? Molly slid the receipt over. Just that you were downsizing. Downsizing. I had not agreed to shrink. At home, Evan's truck was gone. Marissa's white SUV was gone. Dennis had left one of his business cards on my counter. Dennis Vale, Vale Equipment Capital, Strategic Leasing Solutions. I had seen that card before. He gave them out like communion. I opened my laptop. Slowly, because old fingers do not mean dull fingers. I pulled the county auditor site. The cabin parcel sat under Harlan Family Trust. Mailing address, my Maple Street house. Tax status, current. Then I pulled the recorder file from my kitchen camera. Ruth had made me install those cameras after a break-in 2 streets over. She said a man who poured concrete should believe in backup. The morning conversation was all there. Marissa's voice came through clean. He's too old to notice. I played it once, then I stopped. I did not need to punish myself with it. I saved the file to a thumb drive. Then I printed the listing. All 11 pages. The wrong parcel map, the wrong doc, the cash-only line, the seller line naming Evan. My printer clicked and hummed in the little office Ruth used for Christmas cards. On the wall was a photo from the day we finished the cabin porch. I was holding a level. Ruth was holding a paper cup of lemonade. She had sawdust on her cheek and was smiling like we had built a palace. I touched the frame once. Then I went back to work. By 6 that evening, Evan called. Dad, he said, Marissa says you went out there. I did. You photographed the sign? I did. Why? Because it was there. He sighed. She's upset. I figured. You're making this harder. No, son, I'm measuring it. There was silence. Measuring what? The distance between what you said and what the paper says. He did not answer right away, then his voice got smaller. I thought my name was on enough. Enough for what? To sign. I closed my eyes. There it was. Weakness, not evil. Weakness can still do damage, though. A soft board can still fail under weight. Who told you that? I asked. Marissa said her dad checked. Dennis checked. Yeah. With who? I don't know. People. People. That word has hidden plenty of foolishness. Evan, did you request a payoff letter? No. Did you authorize one? I don't think so. You don't think so? He breathed into the phone. Marissa handles the email for the business, not the cabin. The business. I wrote that down too. Dad, please. We're close. If this funding lands, I can pay you back. For what? All of it. He meant the $18,000, the $7,500, the $4,200, the $11,600, maybe more. I had stopped counting because fathers do that sometimes. Is Dennis in trouble? I asked. The line went dead quiet. Why would you ask that? Because hungry men chew through other people's fences. That's not fair. Maybe not. Marissa says you hate him. I don't hate Dennis. You never liked him. That's different. Evan gave a tired laugh. You always do this. You make everything sound like a job inspection. Some things need inspecting. Can we talk tomorrow? We can. Don't call the bank yet. I looked toward the hall closet. Why? Just don't. Did Marissa tell you to say that? He did not answer. That was answer enough. After we hung up, I warmed soup on the stove. I stood there until the burner clicked off. Then I wrote the time down. Not because I was confused, because they had used the stove once. They might use it again. After supper, I carried my notebook to the hall. The house was quiet. Maple Street had settled. A pickup passed once, then nothing. I opened the closet. The green metal box sat behind Ruth's umbrella. Its handle was cold. I brought it to the kitchen table and set it down where Marissa's laptop had been. The key was taped under the second drawer in my workbench, not because I was clever, because Ruth put it there and told me I would forget every obvious place first. I went to the garage and got it. My workshop smelled like oil, lumber, and old concrete dust. On the pegboard hung my father's hammer. Under the bench were 5 coffee cans full of bolts sorted by size. Men who sort bolts do not usually misplace $500,000 cabins. The key was still taped there. I pulled it free and held it in my palm. For a minute, I just stood in that garage. I thought about Evan at 12, sleeping in the truck while I checked a footing before sunrise. I thought about Ruth packing sandwiches at 4:30 in the morning. I thought about every Saturday I missed so that boy could have braces, college, and a clean start. Sacrifice has a ledger too. It just does not send statements. Back at the kitchen table, I put the key into the green box. Then I stopped. Ruth had written on the lid with a black marker years ago. I had forgotten that. 4 words in her neat hand. Cabin, bank, do not toss. I sat down hard, not from shock, from memory. Ruth saved paper like it had feelings. Receipts, carbon copies, bank slips, insurance riders. I used to tease her for it. She would say, "Walter, people get strange when land turns into money." She was right. I turned the key. The latch lifted with a dry metal snap. Inside were folders, rubber bands, a small envelope with Ruth's handwriting, a copy of the old appraisal, the 2017 refinance packet, tax receipts, insurance renewals, bank draft confirmations. On top sat a yellow sticky note. Walter, read before signing anything. That was Ruth's handwriting too. I did not open the envelope. Not yet. I put my hand flat on the lid of that box and listened to the house. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "Please don't make Evan choose between his future and your memories." I looked at that sentence for a long time. Then another text came in. "Russell Keene asked me something odd today. Did you contact the bank?" I had not. Not yet. I texted Russell back with 1 word. No. 3 dots came up, disappeared, came back. Then his answer. "Come see me before you sign anything." I looked at that sentence, then at Ruth's sticky note on the folder. Same warning, different hand. That will make a man sit still. I typed, "Tomorrow." Russell answered, 9 sharp. Use side door. That was not how Russell talked, unless a thing had edges. He was a bank man, but not the kind who hid behind mahogany. His father had run the feed store before Buckeye Heritage bought that corner. Russell knew farmers who came in with mud on their boots and contractors who came in with lien waivers folded in lunch bags. If he said use the side door, he had already seen something he did not like. I did not open Ruth's envelope. I slid it back into the green box and lifted the next folder instead. Inside were copies I knew by weight. The 1998 construction note for $132,000. The 2007 appraisal at $515,000. The 2017 refinance packet, thicker and cleaner with tabs Ruth had made from blue painter's tape. 1 tab said taxes, 1 said insurance, 1 said Evan. That last one made my hand pause. I opened it and found the permitted occupant agreement. 3 pages. Evan's name, my signature, Ruth's signature, Evan's signature, young and rushed. He had been 24 then and angry at the world because the world had not hired him fast enough. Ruth had written a note in the margin. "Quiet is a gift, not a deed." That was Ruth, kind but not soft in the head. I put that page on the table. Then I heard tires in the drive. I closed the folder, but I did not lock the box. Some doors are better left cracked when people think they already own the room. Evan came in first. Marissa followed close behind him, carrying a paper bag from Miller's Bend Deli. She smiled when she saw the green box. "There you are," she said. "We brought dinner." I ate. Evan looked at the pot on the stove. "Soup?" "Soup." Marissa set the bag on the counter. "Well, Dennis is coming too. We thought we should talk like adults." That phrase had gotten popular with people who wanted an old man to stop asking adult questions. I looked at Evan. "You invited him?" He swallowed. Marissa did. "He's helping," she said. "With what?" "With structure." I almost smiled at that. Dennis Vale would not know structure if he stood under a truss diagram with rain coming through it. I left the green box where it was. Marissa's eyes kept touching it, then looking away. Evan saw it too, but he looked sadder than worried. "What's in there?" he asked. "Cabin papers." Marissa's smile thinned. "That's good. We need all of that organized." "It is." She took plates from my cabinet like she lived there. That bothered me more than it should have. Ruth had kept the dinner plates in the same place for 38 years. Marissa opened that cabinet like my house was already being inventoried. Dennis arrived at 7:10. He wore a navy coat with brass buttons and carried no food. Men like Dennis bring advice and call it contribution. "Walter," he said. Glad we're doing this. I nodded. Sit down. He looked at the green box. Everybody did. We ate sandwiches around my kitchen table. Mine stayed wrapped. Marissa talked about Columbus. She said Evan's startup had a real lease waiting near Easton. She said the first-year payroll would run $318,000. She said a developer group had already shown interest. Which developer? I asked. Evan looked up. Marissa dabbed her mouth. They're still confidential. Dennis leaned back. Early money likes discretion. Cash buyers do too, I said. His eyes shifted once. They do. How fast would yours need clean title? Marissa set down her water. Dennis said, that depends. On what? On the seller's cooperation. There was that word again. I looked at Evan. Did you tell the buyer you could deliver title? He rubbed the side of his face. Marissa handled the listing. That wasn't my question. Marissa stepped in fast. We represented that the family was aligned. Which family? She stared at me. Dennis gave a small laugh. Walter, nobody is trying to steal anything. I looked at him for a long second. I didn't say steal. The room went tight. You have to understand something about men like Dennis. They hear the charge before you make it because they have already rehearsed the defense. Evan pushed his plate away. Can we just slow down? We can, I said. Start with the buyer. Marissa folded her hands. The buyer is ready. What's his name? An entity. What entity? Dennis tapped the table. That's not unusual. It is when the seller name is wrong. Marissa went still. Evan looked at her. Wrong how? I watched her recover. She was good at that. Not honest, but quick. It's a draft, she said. Paula knows the final paperwork needs your father's signature. That is not what the folder said. You went through documents at the cabin? My cabin. Her jaw moved. Our family cabin. No, I said. My cabin. Evan flinched. That hurt him. I knew it did. It hurt me too. But a measurement does not change because the board wishes it were longer. Dennis leaned forward. Walter, we're not here to debate sentiment. Good. We're here because Evan has an opportunity. What did you promise against it? He blinked. Against what? The sale. Marissa laughed once. It came out wrong. Why would anyone promise anything? I took a sip of water. Because $200,000 needed by Friday is not momentum. It's pressure. Evan stared at the table. Dennis's face hardened. That number was private. Not at my table. Marissa turned on Evan. You told him Friday? Evan said, no. You must have. He didn't, I said. She looked back at me. Then how did you know? I did not answer. Silence can do work if you let it. Dennis stood and buttoned his coat. This is unproductive. Sit, I said. He did not like that, but he sat. I reached into the green box and pulled out the permitted occupant agreement. I did not turn it toward them. I just set it beside my glass. Evan noticed his name. His face changed. Is that mine? He asked. It has your signature. Marissa leaned closer. What is it? Old cabin paper. Dennis squinted. That's not the deed. No. Then it doesn't matter. I put one finger on the page. Sometimes the paper that is not the deed tells you who never had one. Marissa's chair scraped. This is exactly why I didn't want to do this here. Where did you want to do it? At the bank, she snapped. Dennis looked at her so fast she knew she had said too much. At Buckeye Heritage? I asked. She picked up her purse. Evan, we're leaving. Evan stayed seated. Evan, she said. He looked at me. Dad, what happens if this sale can't close? That depends on what you signed. I signed listing paperwork. With seller authority? I don't know. Marissa said, you knew what it was. He turned to her. You said it was preliminary. It was. Then why is Dad talking about seller name? Dennis stood again. Because your father enjoys control. That one made me laugh just once. Not because it was funny, because the man owing money had called the paying man controlling. I looked at Evan. Bring me every document you signed. Marissa said, no. I kept my eyes on my son. Everyone. Dennis moved toward the door. We'll have counsel handle this. Good, I said. Have counsel read first. Marissa's face went red. You're going to ruin him over a porch swing. I stood then, not fast, not loud, just stood. That swing held your husband when he had mono at 24? I said. Ruth sat beside him 3 nights because he couldn't sleep. Don't make small what you never carried. Evan's eyes went wet. He looked down. Marissa opened her mouth, then closed it. Dennis put his hand on her elbow. They left with the deli bag still on my counter. The tires spun a little on the gravel. I watched the headlights pull away toward Maple Street. Evan's truck did not leave. He sat at my table with his hands flat beside the agreement. He looked younger than 36. Dad, he said, am I in trouble? Maybe. He shut his eyes. You need a lawyer? I need truth first. He nodded, but he did not reach for the page. I thought it was family property. It is. That does not mean you can sell it. Marissa said Mom wanted me to have it. I sat back down. Your mother wanted you to have shelter when you needed it. She did not hand you the foundation and tell you to cash it in. He wiped his face with both hands. I messed up. Yes. The word hit him, but I did not soften it. Some boards only get replaced after you mark the rot. He looked at the green box. What else is in there? Enough. Enough to stop it? Enough to know where to cut. He nodded slowly. Dennis has people calling. What people? I don't know all of them. Names. He rubbed his eyes. One is Mark Hollis. Another is Brian Tuttle. I heard them on speaker. They invested in some leasing fund. Dennis's fund? I think so. How much? He shook his head. Marissa said it wasn't my problem. That means it became yours. Evan looked ashamed. They said the bridge would be covered after the cabin closed. Who said that? Dennis. Did he say family property? Evan looked up. Yeah. There it was. A phrase polished for strangers. I pulled my notebook over and wrote Mark Hollis, Brian Tuttle, leasing fund, family property. Evan watched me write. He used to make fun of my notebooks when he was a teenager, said I wrote down everything like a building inspector. That night he looked grateful for the habit. Did you give Marissa your email login? I asked. For the company account. What about personal? He hesitated. Evan. She has my saved passwords on the laptop. I wrote that down too. His voice dropped. Did she do something? I don't know yet. You think she did. I think the wrong person knew to ask Russell about the bank. Evan pushed back from the table. Russell texted her? No. He texted me. Why? Because somebody contacted Buckeye Heritage today. He stood and paced to the sink. I told her not to call. She may not have. He turned. What does that mean? It means emails have hands. He sat back down hard. For the first time that evening, I let him see a small piece of what I had seen. I turned the permitted occupant agreement around. Not all the way, just enough for his eyes to find his name. Read the first line under your name, I said. He leaned over it. Permitted occupant, he read. Again. He swallowed. Permitted occupant. What does that mean to you? That I could live there. What does it not mean? He stared at the paper. That I own it. I nodded. His face folded. Dad, I'm sorry. Not yet. He looked hurt. Sorry comes after complete, I said. Right now I need facts. That was hard for me. I wanted to put my hand on his shoulder. I wanted to tell him he was still my boy. But comfort given too early can turn into another loan nobody repays. I gave him a yellow legal pad. Write every account Marissa can access, I said. Business, personal, bank, email, listing sites. Don't guess clean, guess wide. He started writing. While he wrote, I opened the tax folder. I set 3 receipts on the table. County tax, $7,840. Insurance, $2,116. Bank drafts, 12 payments at $1,926. Then I added the furnace service invoice for $388 and the roof receipt for $28,750. Evan looked at the stack. You paid all that this year? Yes. I thought the trust handled it. The trust is not a magic pocket. It is my money wearing a better coat. He let out a tired breath. Marissa said trusts generate income. Some do. This one mostly generates paperwork. He almost smiled, then it left him. At 9:30, he had filled 2 pages. Marissa had his personal email, his business email, the shared startup drive, the laptop password, the listing portal password Paula had sent to him. She also had the scanned copy of his driver's license, 2 bank statements, and the office lease near Grandview. "How much is in the business account?" I asked. "About 9,000. Payroll due? Thursday." "How much?" 23,000 if we pay everyone. And you don't have it?" "No." "Who signed the office lease?" "Me." "Not the company?" He closed his eyes. "Me, with company guarantee." "How much?" 3,100 a month, 3-year term. I wrote $111,600 liability. He watched the number appear and went pale. "Dad, that is what paper does. It removes the fog." He put both hands on his head. "I didn't know it was that much." "You signed it." "I know." "Then you knew. You just didn't add." That one hurt him too, but he did not argue. At 10, Marissa called him. He looked at the screen and let it ring. Then she called me. I answered. "Walter," she said, "send Evan home. He's an adult. He's my husband. He's also my son." Her voice went sweet. "This pressure isn't good for you." I looked at Evan. He heard the tone through the phone. "What pressure?" "All this paperwork, all this suspicion. You're tired, you're grieving, you're making choices from fear." There it was, the soft glove. "I slept fine last night," I said. "You need to be careful. People could think you're not handling things well." Evan's head came up. "Which people?" "Paula was concerned," she said. "About what?" "About confusion. Confusion." I looked at the green box, the receipts, the signed agreement, and my notebook with times and names. Confusion was a word lazy people used when exactness scared them. "Put Paula on that concern in writing," I said. Marissa went quiet. I kept my voice flat. "Email it before morning." "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." Evan whispered. "Marissa, stop." She heard him. "You're making a mistake, Evan." He took the phone from my hand. "Did you contact Buckeye Heritage?" Silence. He said it again. "Did you?" I requested standard payoff information. His eyes closed. "With my login?" "It's our future." "With my login?" "You gave me access." He looked at me and I could see something breaking loose. Not a clean break, more like a rusted bolt finally turning. "What exactly did you send?" he asked. She said, "We'll talk at home." "No." "Now!" Her voice sharpened. "Don't let him turn you against me." Evan's mouth tightened. "What did you send?" Dennis came on the line. "Evan, enough." My son looked startled. "Why are you on her phone?" "We're discussing strategy." "At 10 at night?" Dennis said, "You need to get home." Evan handed the phone back to me like it had become hot. I spoke once. "Dennis, I'll be at Buckeye Heritage at 9. He breathed hard. "For what?" "A review." "No one asked for that." "Russell did." That landed. I heard Marissa say something low in the background. Dennis came back. "Walter, if you interfere with a legitimate sale, there are consequences." "There usually are. You should think carefully." "I have been." I ended the call. Evan sat down. "What now?" "Now you go home if you choose. Or you sleep in the guest room." He looked toward the window. "She'll be furious." "That is not a weather report. That is just Marissa." He gave a short laugh, then rubbed his face. "I'll stay." I got sheets from the hall closet. The green box stayed on the kitchen table. Evan looked at it one more time before he went down the hall. "Dad?" "Yes." Was Mom worried this would happen? I picked up Ruth's unopened envelope. She was worried land makes hungry people hungrier. He nodded and disappeared into the guest room. I sat alone until nearly midnight. The house ticked and settled. The refrigerator hummed. Maple Street was dark except for the bank sign 2 blocks away, glowing through the bare branches. Then I opened the bottom layer of the green box. Ruth had made it neat, of course. She had taped a piece of cardboard over the lower papers so dust would not get in. Under it sat a narrow file I had forgotten existed. The label was not blue tape. It was white. "Do not use unless they push." I stared at that for a long time. Inside was not the deed, not the trust, not the writer. It was a copy of an email Ruth had printed in 2018 when Evan first started dating Marissa. Dennis had written to Ruth after a cookout at the cabin. He thanked her for hosting. Then he asked whether the cabin was intended to pass through Evan directly or kept in a vehicle for estate efficiency. Vehicle, that was a Dennis word. He could look at a porch and see collateral. Ruth had printed her reply too. Dennis, the cabin is not Evan's asset. It is Walter's and mine, and later the trust's. Evan may use it with our permission. Please do not raise this with him again. I sat back and could not speak, even alone. Under that email was a handwritten note Ruth had made for me. Walter, he asked too early. 4 words, clean as a chalk line. I put the page back before anger could make my hands rough. Then I locked the green box and carried it to my bedroom. I set it on Ruth's cedar chest. I did not sleep much, but I did not spend the night worrying either. Worry is when you do not know where the load sits. By morning, I knew. Evan was already in the kitchen when I came out. He had made coffee too strong and toast too dark. He looked like he had aged 5 years before breakfast. Marissa texted, he said. What did she say? She said, if I go to the bank with you, I'm choosing your past over our future. I poured coffee. What did you say? Nothing yet. Good. He handed me his phone. I did not take it. Your words are yours, I said. He nodded and typed, I'm going to understand what I signed. He stared at the message before sending it. Then he hit the button. Marissa answered, before I finished my coffee. Then bring your father's papers. All of them. I looked at the screen and felt the last bit of doubt leave me. Dad, Evan said, why would she need your papers? I picked up the green box. Because she still thinks the lock is on the wrong door. We left for Buckeye Heritage at 8:30. The bank sat on Maple Street between Cullen's Pharmacy and the old hardware store that sold me my first transit level in 1979. The sign out front still had the green oak leaf on it. Ruth used to say it looked too fancy for a place that kept coffee in a burned pot and pens chained to counters. Evan drove his truck. I rode with the green box at my feet. He kept looking at it. Is that everything? He asked. No. What else is there? Memory. He nodded, like that answer made him more nervous. Marissa was already in the parking lot when we pulled in. Dennis stood beside her with his phone pressed to his ear. Paula Cates, the listing agent, was there too, holding a leather folder against her chest like it could shield her. Evan shut the truck off. Dad, he said, I don't want to fight. Then don't start one. I didn't mean it like that. I know. He looked toward Marissa. She had not waved. She was staring at the green box through the windshield. I opened the door and stepped down slow. My right knee had been stiff since a footing job behind the county library in 1998. People mistake slow for unsure. That has cost them plenty. Marissa came at me before I reached the curb. Walter, you don't need to bring that in. It has bank papers. Copies would be enough. I prefer originals. Dennis ended his call and put on his public face. We're only here to clarify payoff mechanics. Good, I said. Mechanics matter. Paula gave me a tight smile. Mr. Harlan, I'm glad we're all meeting. You put my cabin online? Her smile failed. I acted on documents provided by Evan, she said. With whose authority? She looked at Evan. Evan looked at the pavement. Marissa stepped in. This is exactly why I said we needed a professional setting. I looked at the bank doors. Then let's use one. Inside, the lobby smelled like floor wax and printer heat. A teller behind the counter glanced up and then looked down too quickly. Small towns do that. They know the truck, the widow, the son, the daughter-in-law, and the house note before anyone says a word. Russell Keene came out from the glass hallway. He wore a gray suit that had seen 10 winters and no vanity. He shook my hand first. Walter. Russell. Then he shook Evan's hand. Evan. My son's voice was low. Morning. Russell did not offer Dennis his first name. Mr. Vale. Dennis's jaw moved. Russell led us to the conference room, not the closing room. I noticed that. It had 6 chairs, a speakerphone, a credenza, and a wall photo of downtown Miller's Bend after the 1993 flood. I had poured 2 replacement foundations after that water went down. Marissa chose the chair nearest the window. Dennis sat beside her. Paula sat near the door. Evan sat next to me. Russell set a thin blue file in front of himself. Marissa looked at it, then at my green box. Is bank counsel joining? She asked. Not for this review, Russell said. Dennis leaned back. Then we should be careful with language. Russell opened the file. That's always a good idea. I could have smiled. I did not. Russell turned to me. Walter, you requested a review of a payoff inquiry submitted yesterday. Yes. He looked at Evan. The inquiry came through credentials tied to you. Evan swallowed. I did not send it. Marissa folded her hands. We use shared devices. Russell's pen stopped. Who is we? He asked. My husband and I. Did you submit the request? She looked at Dennis first. That told me plenty. I requested general information, she said. On a loan you're not party to? It concerns family property. Russell wrote something down. Family property. There it was again, laid like cheap carpet over a hole. Dennis said, the sale is intended to benefit Evan's business. Russell kept his eyes on the paper. Is that business listed on the note? No one said it was, Dennis said. Then it doesn't concern the loan. Marissa's voice sharpened. We're trying to do this cleanly. I opened the green box. The sound of the lid made Paula look at the door. I did not pull out the writer. Not then. That page was not for this room yet. Too early. A man who shows the anchor before the line is tight just teaches the other side where to cut. I took out the county tax receipt and slid it to Russell. $7,840, I said. Paid March 2nd. Russell nodded. Then the insurance declaration, $2,116. Then the 12 bank drafts, $1,926 each month. Dennis exhaled through his nose. No one disputes you maintained it. Good. Marissa leaned forward. Walter, maintenance doesn't make this personal property. I looked at her. No, ownership does. Russell's eyes moved from her to me, then back to the file. Paula cleared her throat. For listing purposes, I relied on representations. I turned to her. From who? Evan supplied the login. Who supplied the documents? She hesitated. Marissa said, don't answer that without counsel. Paula's face changed. It was the first honest fear I had seen from her. Russell closed the blue file halfway. This review is voluntary. If anyone needs counsel, we can pause. No, Dennis said quickly. That was the right answer for the wrong reason. He did not want more eyes on the table. Russell looked at Paula. You may answer if you choose. Paula opened her folder. Her hands were not steady. The listing packet included an appraisal PDF, an old survey image, tax page, cabin photos, and a seller intake form. Who emailed it? Russell asked. Paula looked at Marissa. Marissa said nothing. Paula said, Mrs. Harlan. Evan turned toward his wife. You told me Paula already had it. I said she needed it. You said it came from Dad's old file. It did. I felt my hand close around the edge of the green box. Then I opened it again. Which old file? I asked. Marissa met my eyes. The cabin file. Where did you get it? You gave Evan access. No. She blinked. I gave Evan keys, I said. That is not the same as access. Dennis tapped the table with 2 fingers. We're drifting. No, Russell said. We're not. Paula slid a printed listing page across the table. This is the live listing. I saw Ruth swing again in the thumbnail. Blue paint faded on the left arm. I had meant to repaint it in May. Then the furnace went. Then the roof bill came. Then grief sat in my chair again for a week and I let the porch wait. Russell pointed to the second page. This doc photo, he said. Is that part of the parcel? No, I said. Paula looked confused. The doc was in the appraisal package. It was in a package from 2014, I said, for a different purpose. Dennis looked at Marissa. That look was fast, but it carried weight. Russell asked, what purpose? A line of credit review I never took. Marissa's lips parted. I looked at her. You didn't know that. She recovered. It doesn't matter. The cabin appraised at $515,000. In 2014, I said, with a doc that was never mine. Paula's face went pale. The buyer was told doc access was included. Evan put both hands flat on the table. Marissa. She turned on him. I didn't build the listing. You sent the packet. I sent what your family had. My family? He said. Or my dad's locked file? That landed harder than I expected. For 1 second, Evan sounded like a husband. Then he sounded like my son. Dennis leaned forward. Everyone needs to stop using loaded words. I looked at him. Which word scares you? He smiled without warmth. None. Locked? His eyes narrowed. Russell stood. I'm going to copy these receipts for the file. He reached for the papers I had brought. I kept one finger on them. Copies only, I said. Of course. He left the room. The door shut soft behind him. Marissa whispered, You're enjoying this. No. You are. I looked at my son. There is nothing enjoyable about watching a man learn he signed blind. Evan did not look away. Dennis said, Walter, you can still choose family. Family is not a word you say over someone else's collateral. His face hardened. Marissa laughed once under her breath. Collateral. That's all Ruth's cabin is to you now. The room stopped. Evan said, Don't. She ignored him. She loved that place. Yes, I said. She did. And you're using bank language over it. I reached into the green box and touched Ruth's envelope. I did not take it out. Not yet. You used her porch swing in a sales ad, I said. Don't come to me carrying her name. Her face changed. Anger first, then worry. Dennis cut in. The question is simple. Will you cooperate with a clean sale or not? I shut the box. I will cooperate with truth. Paula spoke quietly. Mr. Harlan, I need to ask something. Ask. Did you ever authorize use of that appraisal? No. Did Ruth? No. She looked down at her folder like it had become dirty. Marissa said, Paula, you're overreacting. Paula did not answer her. Russell came back with my receipts and a new sheet in his hand. He sat, placed everything neatly, and looked at Evan. Before we go further, Russell said, I need to confirm something on the access log. Marissa stiffened. Russell slid the sheet toward Evan. The payoff inquiry came from an IP address registered to an office suite in Grandview. Evan stared at the page. My office. The request attached your driver's license and 2 bank statements. Evan looked at Marissa. You sent my bank statements? They required identity verification. I didn't ask for payoff. We needed numbers. For what? She did not answer. Dennis did. For planning. Evan turned to him. You're planning? Your company needs capital. My company needed payroll, Evan said, not my father's cabin. Marissa's voice went low. That's not what you said Monday. What did I say Monday? You said you'd do anything to keep the company alive. He sat back like she had slapped him with his own weakness. I understood that kind of shame. I had seen men sign lien waivers before checks cleared because they wanted to believe the general contractor was decent. Wanting a thing to be true can get expensive. Russell looked at me. Walter, there's more. I nodded. The payoff request asked where release funds would be wired after lien satisfaction. Paula blinked. Release funds? Russell said, proceeds net of the bank's interest. Dennis shifted in his chair. To what account? I asked. Russell looked at the sheet. A business operating account. Evan reached for the paper. Mine? Russell turned it enough for him to read. Evan's face went blank. Vail Strategic Leasing. There it was. Not Evan's startup, not a bridge, not family property. Vail Strategic Leasing. Marissa closed her eyes for half a breath. Dennis did not move at all. I wrote the name in my notebook. Dad, Evan said, I don't know that account. I believe you. Dennis spread his hands. That was a temporary holding account. Russell said, for proceeds from a loan you do not own? Dennis's voice got hard. I said temporary. Marissa leaned toward Evan. This was to help manage investor timing. Evan stared at her. Your father's investors? Our investors, she said. No, he said. I never invested in his fund. Dennis smiled. You benefited. Evan's mouth opened, then closed. Russell asked, benefited how? Dennis looked at him like he had forgotten the bank officer was in the room. That's private, Dennis said. Russell's pen moved again. Paula whispered, I need to withdraw the listing. Marissa snapped, you will do no such thing. Paula stood halfway. I can't market a parcel with disputed authority. It's not disputed, Marissa said. Walter is making it disputed. Paula looked at me, then at Russell. I'm pausing it. Dennis's chair scraped. Sit down. Paula froze. I said, She can stand. Dennis looked at me. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. There are men who hear quiet and think it is empty. Dennis had not learned the difference yet. Paula picked up her folder. I'm calling my broker. She left the room. Marissa stared after her. Unbelievable. Russell closed the file. For now, Buckeye Heritage will not issue payoff figures to any non-borrower. Dennis said, that harms a legitimate transaction. It protects the bank. And the seller? Russell looked at me. The bank recognizes borrowers and authorized parties. Marissa pointed at Evan. He's authorized. Russell did not answer. That was the first turn of the bolt, not the snap, just the first turn. Evan spoke before Marissa could. Russell, am I authorized? Russell looked at me first. Walter, answer him. Russell folded his hands. You are listed in banknotes as a permitted occupant for insurance and property access. Evan looked down. Marissa said, that's not final authority. No, Russell said, it isn't. She heard it wrong. She thought he meant it helped her. I saw Dennis catch the problem before she did. I put the green box on the table. Russell, I said, I want a full witnessed review. Borrower status, lien status, collateral clauses, internal notes. Buyer's bank can attend if they want. Marissa went still. Dennis said, that's unnecessary. Then it won't hurt. Russell looked at his calendar. The buyer's bank asked for a call today at noon. Noon is fine. Dennis stood. I object. Russell looked up at him. You're not a party to the loan. Dennis's face flushed. Evan kept staring at the words on Russell's sheet. Vail Strategic Leasing. I could see him adding backwards now. Monday, payroll. The buyer. Marissa's laptop. His password. His name on the office lease. His wife's father on a speakerphone. Let me tell you, there is a moment when a weak man can either get weaker or get honest. It is not pretty either way, but honest at least has a floor under it. Evan said, I want the review. Marissa turned to him. You don't understand what you're doing. He looked at her. I'm starting to. She grabbed her purse. Then understand this. If that sale dies, your company dies with it. He nodded slowly. Maybe it already did. For the first time, she had no answer ready. Russell stood. We'll reconvene at noon in the larger conference room. Walter, I'll secure copies from our archived loan file. I put my hand on the green box. I'll bring mine. Dennis pointed at it. What's in there? I looked at him. Paper. What paper? The kind that waits. He stared at me, then he smiled, but it looked strained. You always liked theater. No, I liked footings. Russell held the door open. Noon. We walked out into the lobby. Paula was by the teller counter on her phone, speaking in a low voice. Yes, remove it from active status. No, today, right now. Marissa heard her and turned sharp. Paula. Paula held up one finger and kept talking. Dennis stepped close to me. You're putting your son in a hole. I looked at Evan, who stood 10 feet away with his hands in his coat pockets. No, I said. I'm letting him see the one he's in. Dennis leaned closer. You don't know who's waiting on that money. I know one name now. His eye twitched. Vail Strategic Leasing, I said. He whispered, careful. I looked at the lobby camera above the deposit slips. I am. He stepped back. Marissa walked over to Evan. Her voice was soft enough that most of the lobby could pretend not to hear it. Come home with me. Evan shook his head. Don't do this here, she said. You did it here. I was trying to save us. By wiring Dad's cabin money to your father? Her face tightened. You don't understand the structure. I understand the name. She reached for his hand. He let her take it, but he did not close his fingers. That hurt to watch. Marriage does not break in one clean sound. Sometimes it is just a hand that does not squeeze back. She said, if you walk into that noon meeting, there may not be anything to come home to. Evan looked tired. Then I need to know what home was. She let go. Outside, the July air had already turned thick. Maple Street had delivery trucks at the pharmacy, 2 men arguing over a parking meter, and the bank flag hanging without wind. Miller's Bend looked ordinary. That was the thing about trouble. It did not darken the street for everyone. Evan and I walked to his truck. Dad, he said, what's Vail Strategic Leasing? Your question belongs to Dennis. What do you think it is? A bucket with a hole in it. He leaned against the truck. Marissa said he had a fund, equipment rentals, small contractors, trucks, lifts, skid steers. How much did she say? Not much. She said he was between cycles. Between cycles can mean broke. He nodded. Do you think he used me? Yes. He closed his eyes. Do you think she did too? I looked back at the bank doors. Marissa stood inside with Dennis, both of them on phones. Yes. He turned away. I let him have that quiet. A father can answer a question and still wish the truth had missed. We drove back to my house because noon was too close to go anywhere else. Evan followed me inside and sat at the kitchen table where the receipts had been the night before. The deli bag was still on the counter. I threw it out. He watched me set the green box down. What's the paper that waits? He asked. I stood there a moment. Then I took Ruth's envelope out. His face changed when he saw her handwriting. Mom wrote that? Yes. When? After Dennis asked about the cabin in 2018. Evan rubbed his forehead. He asked Mom? At a cookout. I don't remember. You were down by the water with Marissa. He gave a bitter little laugh. Of course I was. I unfolded the printed email first and placed it in front of him. He read Dennis's question. He read Ruth's answer. He got to the line about the cabin not being Evan's asset and sat back. He knew, Evan said. Yes. He knew before any of this. Yes. His voice cracked. And Mom knew he knew. I handed him Ruth's note. Walter, he asked too early. Evan put one hand over his mouth. He did not cry loud. He just bent over the paper and fought himself. I wanted to comfort him. I really did. But Ruth had written that note because she trusted me to hold the line when holding it hurt. After a minute, he whispered, Did she not trust Marissa? She trusted what people showed her. He nodded. That means no. It means Ruth paid attention. He wiped his eyes. What else is in the envelope? I took out the folded letter. This was not the writer. The writer stayed wrapped inside it. I kept my thumb over the thicker fold. Your mother wrote this for me, I said. I'm not reading all of it now. Why? Because noon is for facts, not tears. He looked ashamed again. Can I hear any of it? I sat across from him and unfolded the first page. Ruth's handwriting was steady. Mine never was. She had taught third grade for 26 years and could make a grocery list look like a church register. I read the first lines. Walter, if this file is open, then someone has made the cabin into bait. Do not let hungry people use our son as the hook. Evan shut his eyes. I stopped. That's enough for now. No, he said. Please. I looked at him. You need to stand up in that bank without leaning on grief. You can read the rest later if you earn it. He took that. He did not argue. I folded the letter back around the writer and returned it to the envelope. He stared at it. What's inside? Bank paper. Is it the thing that stops them? It is the thing that tells the bank what to do when someone tries. He nodded slowly. At 11:30, my landline rang. Not my cell, the landline. Only a few people use that number anymore. Doctors, old suppliers, and people who wanted to sound official. I answered, Mr. Harlan? A man said. This is Mark Hollis. Evan looked up. I put the call on speaker. This is Walter. I'm calling regarding your family's transaction. What family transaction? The cabin sale. Evan stood. Mark cleared his throat. Dennis told us the closing was moving today. Us? Myself and another investor group. How much are you waiting on? Silence. I let it sit. Mark said, This is not a proper venue. You called my kitchen. Evan stared at the phone. Mark lowered his voice. $312,000 is due into the leasing partnership. Dennis represented that Evan's liquidity event would satisfy it. There was the number, not rumor anymore. Spoken by a man with his own money on the line. Evan whispered, Oh my God. Mark said, Who is that? My son, I said. I was told Evan approved the source. Evan grabbed the back of a chair. I approved no payment to you. Mark went quiet. I said, Mark, noon at Buckeye Heritage. Bring whatever Dennis gave you. I don't take orders from strangers. Then stay blind. He breathed hard. Is the sale closing or not? No. Evan looked at me. I had not said maybe, I had not said delayed. Sometimes a clean no saves 3 men from pretending. Mark said, "Then Dennis and I need to talk." "Yes," I said. "You do." I hung up. Evan sat down hard. 312,000, he said. "Yes, that's what this was. That's one load. There's more?" "There usually is." He looked toward the hall, where Ruth's photo sat on the small table by the guest room. "Mom called it bait." She did. And I was the hook. I did not answer. He already knew. At 11:45, Marissa texted him again. "Do not bring your father's box into that room Evan showed me." I said, "What do you want to say?" He typed with both thumbs. "I'm bringing myself." He sent it. That was the first thing he had done all morning that looked like a footing under him. We drove back to Buckeye Heritage with the green box on Evan's lap this time. He had asked to carry it. I let him, not because he owned what was inside, because he needed to feel the weight he had been treating like fog. The noon meeting was in the larger conference room at the back. It had a long table, 8 chairs, and a speakerphone shaped like a black star. Russell was there with 2 files now, one blue, one tan. Paula sat beside a man I assumed was her broker. Marissa sat at the far side with Dennis. Mark Hollis had come too. He wore a sport coat too tight across the shoulders and looked mad before anyone spoke. A woman's voice came through the speakerphone. "This is Ann Bell from First Capital Title, representing the buyer's lender." Russell leaned toward it. "Ann, this is Russell Keene at Buckeye Heritage. Present are Walter Harlan, Evan Harlan, Marissa Harlan, Dennis Vale, Mark Hollis, Paula Cates, and her broker, Tom Sutter." Tom nodded once. Russell looked at me. "Walter, are you ready to proceed?" I set the green box on the table. "Yes." Marissa's eyes stayed on the box. Dennis tried to sound bored. "Can we keep this limited? Some of us have obligations." Mark snapped, "I have one obligation, getting my money." Dennis turned on him. "Not here." Mark pointed at the speakerphone. "You told me this was closing." Ann Bell's voice came through clean. "For clarity, no closing is scheduled with our office." Paula looked at her broker. Marissa said, "It was an anticipated cash transaction." Ann said, "Our buyer requested financing review after seeing title inconsistencies." Dennis stared at Paula. "You said cash." Paula answered fast. "Your intake form said cash preferred. The offer packet included lender review." Marissa's face tightened. "I wrote that down. Cash only had been bait too. Make the listing look urgent. Make me look unreasonable if I slowed it down. But money had its own paperwork, and paperwork has a habit of bringing witnesses." Russell opened the tan file. "This is not a closing," he said. "This is a loan authority and lien review." Dennis said, "We object to investor matters being dragged in." Russell looked at Mark. "Mr. Hollis may stay only if Walter permits it." All eyes moved to me. Mark said, "I have a direct financial interest." "No," I said. "You have Dennis." His face reddened. "But he can stay," I said. "I want him to hear what he bought." Dennis muttered, "This is absurd." Russell began with the first page. Original construction note. Briar Hook Road Cabin, borrower Walter Harlan, spouse Ruth Harlan, dated September 9th, 1997. Original principal, $186,000. Evan looked at me. He knew I had built much of it myself. He had not known what I borrowed. Russell turned the page. Refinance and trust assignment, dated May 5th, 2016. Borrower of record, Walter Harlan and Ruth Harlan Revocable Trust. Marissa leaned back. Dennis looked at the file like it had insulted him. Russell continued. Renewal balance as of last statement, $142,812.19. Mark said, "So there's equity." Russell looked over his glasses. "Equity belongs to the owner, not the loudest creditor." Tom Sutter coughed into his hand. I almost liked him for that. Marissa said, "Where is Evan listed?" Russell turned another page. Insurance access note, permitted occupant for seasonal use. She said, "That doesn't mean he lacks authority." Russell did not argue. He reached for the blue file instead. "This is the payoff request submitted yesterday." Marissa's hand moved to her purse. Evan said, "Leave it." She froze. Russell read the request date, time, login source, and wire instruction. Vale Strategic Leasing sat there in the air again, ugly and plain. Ann Bell spoke through the phone. That account is not associated with the seller profile we received. Russell asked, "What seller profile did you receive?" Ann paused. Seller listed as Evan Harlan, married man, sole beneficial family owner. Evan whispered, "No." Marissa said, "That was preliminary." Ann answered, "It was signed." Evan looked at her. "By me?" Ann said, "By electronic signature." The room went quiet. Evan turned to Marissa. "When?" She stared at the table. "Marissa," he said. "When?" Dennis answered. "Electronic consents are routine." Evan stood. "When?" Russell checked the page. "Monday night, 9:13. Evan looked at me. "I was on the phone with you Monday at 9. "Yes." Marissa said, "Your laptop was open." Evan's face went white. I felt anger move through me, but I kept it where it belonged. Anger is heat. Heat bends steel if you let it. Russell set both files side by side. "I'm going to pause before the archived collateral section," he said. "The bank needs to verify whether the attempted transfer triggers review under the trust assignment." Dennis stood. "No, we are done." Ann's voice came through. "First Capital title is not done." Mark said, "I'm not done either." Marissa looked at Russell. "You can't just freeze our future." Russell's answer was calm. "I can freeze a lien release discussion." "That's the same thing." "No," I said. "Your future was the part you built without my paper." Evan sat down slowly. He looked at the green box in front of him, then pushed it toward me with both hands. "Dad," he said, "open it." I looked at the clock on the wall. Noon had become 12:26. We were not at the blast yet. Not the full one. I could feel the line getting tight, though. Everyone at that table had put a hand on it. I unlocked the green box. Marissa whispered, "Walter." I looked at her. She did not finish. Inside, Ruth's envelope rested on top, her handwriting faced up. "Walter, if they push." Evan read it. Dennis read it. Mark leaned forward, but he could not see enough. Russell saw the envelope and took off his glasses. "Is that Ruth's hand?" he asked. "Yes." I laid it on the table, but did not unfold the writer. Not yet. I took out only the first page of her letter. My voice stayed steady because Ruth deserved steady. "Walter, if this file is open, then someone has made the cabin into bait. Do not let hungry people use our son as the hook." No one spoke. Then Mark Hollis looked at Dennis. "What did she mean by hungry people?" Dennis said, "This is sentimental nonsense." Evan turned to him. "Answer him." Dennis straightened his cuffs. "I'm not answering an insult from a dead woman's note." That did it. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. Evan stood and faced his father-in-law. "You're done talking about my mother." Dennis looked surprised. Marissa did too. I put Ruth's page back in the envelope. The writer stayed folded inside, still unread. Russell closed the tan file with one hand resting on it. "We reconvene at 2 with bank counsel and title counsel," he said. "This review now includes potential unauthorized access and misrepresentation." Dennis said, "You'll hear from my attorney." Russell nodded. "Have him bring the Monday signature record." Ann Bell said, "First Capital title will suspend buyer review pending written clarification." Paula's broker stood. "The listing is inactive as of 12/18. Marissa stared at him. "You had no right." Tom Sutter looked at her. "Neither did you, from what I'm hearing." Mark Hollis pushed back from the table. "Dennis, outside." Dennis did not move. Mark's voice dropped. "Now." For the first time since I had met him, Dennis Vale looked like a man who had borrowed against the weather. I closed the green box and locked it. Evan watched the key turn. He said, "Dad, what happens at 2? I picked up Ruth's envelope and slid it back under the latch. "At 2, I said. "The right people read the right page." We stepped out of that conference room into the narrow hall by the coin machine. Nobody moved fast. That told me plenty. Guilty people hurry when there is an exit. Cornered people wait to see who moves first. Dennis stood near the glass door with Mark Hollis close to his shoulder. Mark had both hands on his hips and his jaw set hard. "You said Harlan approved it," Mark said. Dennis kept his voice down. "He did." I just heard him say he didn't. You heard family theater. Mark looked past him at Evan. Did you sign my repayment source? Evan stopped beside me. No. Marissa came out behind him. Evan, don't answer him. Mark laughed once. That's the first honest thing you've said. Dennis pointed a finger at him. Careful. No, Mark said. You be careful. My note matures Friday. That was new. I looked at Russell. He had heard it too. His face did not change, but his pen came out of his shirt pocket. Friday? Russell asked. Mark turned. Private matter. You said note, Russell said. What collateral? Dennis said, he doesn't know what he's saying. Mark reached inside his coat and took out a folded packet. I know exactly what I'm saying. Marissa went pale. There is a look people get when paper appears that they hoped would stay in a drawer. I had seen it with subcontractors who spent draw money before the inspection passed. I had seen it with owners who built additions over septic lines. The face is always the same. The body knows before the mouth does. Mark held the packet up. Dennis gave me a participation agreement. Russell said, is the cabin named? Mark looked at Dennis. You want to answer that? Dennis said, no. Mark unfolded the first page. Family property sale proceeds. Evan shut his eyes. Marissa whispered, Dad. I heard the word, Dad. Not Dennis, not Mr. Vale. Dad. Evan heard it too. Russell held out his hand. May I copy that for counsel? Mark pulled it back. I'm not giving you my paper. Then read the line. Mark glanced down. His anger was doing the work Dennis's pride would not do. Projected receipt from Harlan cabin transaction, estimated net after lien, $328,000 to $341,000. Paula, who had stepped into the hall with Tom Sutter, said, You put my offer in your debt papers? Dennis looked at her. Your offer was not accepted. Tom said, It was used. Ann Bell's voice was gone now, but title people had a way of lingering through what they had already put on record. Paula folded her arms and looked at Marissa. You told me your husband inherited it, Paula said. Marissa lifted her chin. Family arrangements are complicated. No, I said. Concrete is complicated until it cures. Ownership is names on paper. She turned on me. You're enjoying this. I'm counting. What? Loads. Weight. Stress points. Dennis sneered. There he goes again. Evan stepped toward him. Don't. Dennis looked at my son like he had forgotten Evan could stand between us. You need to think hard about where loyalty belongs. Evan said, I'm starting to. Marissa grabbed his arm. Please come outside with me. He looked at her hand. Did you use my laptop Monday? Her fingers tightened. Not here. That's your answer? I was trying to keep us from losing everything. We didn't have the cabin to lose. You had access. He stared at her. Access isn't ownership. I saw Russell write that down too. You have to understand something about small-town banks. They may have glass offices now and software that blinks at them, but the old ones still run on memory. Russell had known me since I was 34 and had dust in my hair every Friday afternoon. He had watched me deposit checks from block work, basement walls, school additions, and county jobs. He knew what I paid. He knew what I refused to skip. He touched my elbow. Walter, counsel asked for the archive card. I looked at him. The microfilm card? Yes. Dennis laughed. Microfilm, wonderful. Maybe you can bring out a butter churn. Russell did not smile. It contains the original collateral index. Marissa said, the refinance controls, not some antique card. Sometimes old paper explains why new paper says what it says, Russell answered. Dennis checked his watch. At 2, I'm bringing counsel. Good, Russell said. Bring anyone who can explain the login. Marissa's phone buzzed. She looked down and turned the screen away from Evan. That was a small move, but small moves tell the truth. Evan said, show me. It's nothing. Show me. She held it against her chest. You're embarrassing me. He gave a tired smile. That's rich. Dennis said, Evan, you're emotional. Evan turned to him. Yes, I am. That stopped Dennis for half a breath. Men like him know how to handle apology. They know how to handle shouting. Plain hurt bothers them because it does not give them a lever. Mark leaned toward Dennis. My lawyer will be here before 2. Dennis said, "You don't need a lawyer." Mark tapped the packet against his palm. "That's what you said last month." Last month. That was another nail. Russell said, "Mr. Hollis, did you receive any listing documents?" Mark hesitated. Dennis said, "Don't answer that." Mark looked at him. "Were you going to pay me Friday?" Dennis said nothing. Mark looked at Russell. "Yes, I got a listing printout and a net sheet." Paula made a small sound. "From who?" Mark's eyes moved to Marissa. She said, "Dennis handled investor materials." Evan's face changed. I had watched him as a boy miss a step on wet dock boards. That same drop went through him now. "Marissa," he said, "did you send our listing to his investor?" She said, "It was a projection. It wasn't ours. It was going to be." "No." She took a breath. "You said you wanted the startup funded. I wanted investors in Columbus. And they wanted proof. So you gave them Dad's cabin. It was unused equity. There it was. Not dead space now. Unused equity." I said the words back. Unused equity. She looked at me, annoyed. "That's what it was." "No," I said. "It was a porch where Ruth drank coffee." Her eyes flicked toward the green box. "You can't make every asset sacred." "I didn't. I made this one paid." Russell looked at me, and I knew he wanted me to hold the rest. The writer was still under Ruth's letter. The right people had not read it yet. The room had heard enough to know there was more. That is how you shore a wall before you put weight on it. Tom Sutter stepped closer to Paula. "We should leave." Paula shook her head. "No, I want to know why my name is on their paperwork." Dennis smiled thinly. "You made an offer on a property your daughter had no right to sell." "That's an allegation." Tom said, "It's also a title problem." Marissa pointed at him. "You were happy to take the commission." Tom's face reddened. "I was happy to sell a cabin, not be used as a prop." Russell's assistant came down the hall carrying a gray folder and a plastic sleeve. Her name was Janice. She had worked the drive-through window when my business still had payroll envelopes. "Russ," she said, "Archive pulled it." He took the folder. "Thank you." Dennis stepped forward. "That is bank property. It shouldn't be displayed in a hallway." Russell looked at him, then stopped, turning the hallway into a deposition. I almost smiled, but not quite. Janice glanced at me. "Walter." "Janice." She looked at Evan. "I'm sorry." That hurt him more than the shouting. Public shame lands differently when spoken kindly. Russell opened the gray folder just enough for himself to see. He did not show the writer. He showed the index card. "Original parcel reference," he said. "Briar Hook Road, Lot 7. Cabin tract only. Dock parcel excluded." Paula's head snapped up. "Excluded?" Tom looked at her. "The dock photo was separate." I said, "It was always separate." Russell nodded. "The dock access belonged to Lot 8 until the 2004 easement ended. The bank file notes no dock collateral." Marissa swallowed. Evan looked at her. "Why was a dock photo in the listing?" "I used old pictures." "From where?" She did not answer. Russell turned one page. "The appraisal photo set from 2016 shows the dock." I looked at Marissa. "That appraisal was in my file." Dennis said, "Many appraisals are public." "No," Russell said. "Interior appraisal packets are not public records." The hall went quiet again. That was the first clean payoff on the wrong dock. Not the whole roof caving in, but one beam cracked where everyone could see it. Evan said, "How did you get Dad's appraisal?" Marissa's eyes filled, but I did not trust tears anymore just because they were wet. "I found it," she said. "Where?" "In our files." "We didn't have that file." She looked at me. "Walter gave Ruth's estate papers to us after the funeral." "No," I said. "I gave Evan the service bills and the life insurance receipt. $26,400 for the funeral home, cemetery, and church hall. I kept the property file." She blinked. "You don't remember everything." Confused. She did not say it, but she said it on the table without using the word. Russell saw my face. Evan saw it too. I said, "Ask me the check number." Marissa stared. I said, "The funeral home was check 11,082. The cemetery was 11,083. The church hall was a cashier's check for $850. Evan whispered, "Dad." I kept copies because that's what grief leaves you with, I said. Receipts in rooms nobody wants to enter. Marissa looked away. Dennis cleared his throat. This is becoming grotesque. No, Mark said. It's becoming itemized. I did smile then, not much. Russell closed the archive folder. At 2, counsel will review the appraisal access issue with the payoff issue. Dennis said, you are wildly outside bank scope. The bank's lien file was used to support a sale representation, Russell said. That is inside scope. Mark held his packet against his side. I'm staying. Paula said, so am I. Russell looked at both of them. You may wait in the lobby. Counsel will decide who sits in. Dennis said, I will not be ambushed by a parade. You built the parade, I said. He turned toward me. You think one old loan makes you powerful? No, I think names make paper powerful. Marissa stepped close to Evan. Her voice went soft again. Evan, we need to talk alone. He looked at me, then back at her. You can talk here. You're humiliating me. You signed my name. She flinched. I preserved an opportunity. You signed my name. I had your passwords because we're married. That isn't permission. Dennis said, don't be childish. Evan swung around. You told your investor my father's cabin would pay your debt. I advanced your future. With his asset. With family property. Evan's voice broke. You knew Mom said no in 2018. Dennis looked confused for a second, and then he hit it. I have no idea what that means. I opened the green box, took out the printed email, and handed it to Evan. He did not read the whole thing. He held it up. You asked my mother about the cabin, Evan said. She told you it wasn't mine. Dennis looked at the page, then at me. Private correspondence. With my dead mother, Evan said. Marissa whispered, Evan, stop. He shook his head. No, he knew. Mark leaned in to read the top line. That's 2018? Yes, Evan said. Mark looked at Dennis. Before my money. Dennis's mouth tightened. I could feel the order of it now. Dennis had tested Ruth first. Ruth had blocked him. Years later, he had used Marissa and Evan's startup as a new handle on the same locked door. He did not need to own the cabin. He just needed enough people to believe Evan could sell it before Friday. A bad footing can carry weight for a while. Then one hard rain shows the hollow underneath. Russell checked the lobby clock. 1:10. Dennis said, fine, we'll return at 2. He turned toward the exit. Mark followed him. They did not make it past the inside doors before Mark caught his arm. You told me Walter was failing, Mark said. I heard it. So did Evan. Dennis said, lower your voice. You said the old man was confused and Evan had practical control. The word landed that time. Confused. Marissa closed her eyes. Evan looked at me. He said that? Mark looked at Evan. That's what he said. He said your father was sentimental and losing track. Dennis snapped. I said no such thing. Mark held up the packet. It's in the memo. Russell said, read it. Dennis turned. Do not. Mark read anyway. Elder owner emotionally attached, but son has operational control and family consensus. My hand stayed still on the green box. I was glad for that. A man can lose more by proving he is angry than by being wronged. Evan stepped toward Dennis. You wrote that? Dennis said, investors require context. My father paid every draft. That's not the point. It is to me. Marissa said, Evan, please. He turned to her. Did you call Dad confused? She did not answer. He nodded once. Okay. That one word did more than a speech. Russell touched the gray folder. Walter, do you want a copy of that investor memo requested? Yes. Mark said, you can have it. Dennis glared at him. Mark looked back. My money bought the truth, apparently. He handed Russell the packet. Russell took it to the copier behind the teller line. Janice walked with him. For 3 minutes, nobody said much. You could hear the low beeping of the ATM and the soft scrape of Paula's shoe on the tile. Outside, a delivery driver rolled a hand truck past the front windows with 2 cases of bottled water. Miller's Bend kept moving. Trouble is personal until paperwork makes it public. Evan sat in one of the lobby chairs. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. Marissa stood a few feet from him, stuck between wife and daughter. Dennis paced near the door. Mark watched him like a man watching a cracked gauge. I sat beside Evan. He said, "Dad, did you know they called you that?" I suspected. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You weren't listening." He took that without defense. No, I wasn't. I looked at the green box on my lap. "Your mother used to say a closed ear costs more than an open one." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I gave Marissa my passwords." "Most husbands do." "I made it easy." "Yes." He looked at me. "You're not going to soften that?" "No." He nodded. "Good." Marissa came closer. "Evan, I need 10 minutes." He did not look up. "No." "I'm your wife." "You used that too." She stepped back like he had raised a hand. He had not. He had only stopped holding up her version of the day. Russell returned with copies clipped together. He gave one set to Mark and one to me. I kept a bank copy. Dennis said, "That document is confidential." Mark said, "It's my document." Russell looked at me. "Walter, there is one more issue." I knew by his voice it was not small. "What issue?" He opened the plastic sleeve from the archive folder. Inside was a copy of the 2016 appraisal cover sheet. "The listing photo packet matches the appraisal sequence," Russell said. "Same order, same crop marks." Tom Sutter came over. "May I see?" Russell held it where he could view it without touching. Tom looked sick. "That's our upload order." Paula said, "Your office uploaded bank appraisal photos?" Tom shook his head. "Marissa provided the photo set." Marissa said, "You never asked where they came from." Tom stared at her. "Because clients usually own their photos." Dennis said, "This is irrelevant." Russell looked at him. "It goes to source." "Source of what?" "Access." That word shut him up. I turned to Marissa. "When did you take the appraisal packet?" She folded her arms. "I didn't take anything." "You copied it." "No." "You had the doc photo." "I had family photos." I shook my head. "Ruth hated that doc." Evan looked at me. "Why?" "Your mother slipped on it in 2003 and cursed it every summer after." For the first time that day, Evan almost laughed. It came out broken, but it was there. I looked back at Marissa. Ruth never kept a framed picture of that doc. I did not either. Marissa's mouth tightened. Russell said, "Walter, was anyone in your workshop recently?" That was the right question, and it opened a door I had not wanted to enter. I thought of the shelf by my old miter saw. I thought of the dust line on the green box. I thought of the drawer with the spare house key, the one Evan had used when Ruth got sick and I needed help with groceries. Evan saw me thinking. "Dad?" I said, "Somebody moved the workshop stool." Marissa looked at the floor. Dennis said, "A stool." "Yes," I said, "a stool." He laughed. "This is your evidence?" "No, it was my warning." Russell asked, "Could the appraisal have been in the workshop?" "It was in the tall cabinet before I moved the file." "When?" I looked at Marissa. "After the cookout last month." Evan turned to her. "The cookout," she said. "We were all there." "Did you go into Dad's workshop?" "I used the bathroom. The bathroom is in the house." "I got paper towels." "From the workshop?" She snapped. "I don't remember every step I took." There it was again, turned around. When she wanted my age to matter, memory was proof. When her own steps mattered, memory became fog. Russell wrote one line on his pad. "Access window." Dennis said, "You people are building fantasy." Mark said, "No, they're building a timeline." At 1:30, a black sedan pulled into the bank lot. A man in a navy suit got out with a leather folder. Dennis straightened like someone had plugged him in. "My attorney," he said. Russell said, "Counsel meets bank counsel at 2. "He's here now." "He can wait." The man came through the doors. Dennis rushed to him and spoke fast. I heard my name, Evan's name, and the word hostile. The attorney looked toward us. He did not look surprised. That told me Dennis had not told him the whole truth, but he had told him enough to bill. Russell's phone buzzed. He read the screen. "Bank counsel is 10 minutes out." Dennis's attorney walked over. "Mr. Keene, I'm Grant Albright. My client objects to any further disclosure." Russell shook his hand. "Noted." Grant looked at me. "Mr. Harlan, you understand false accusations carry consequences." "I do. Then I suggest you stop making them." "I haven't made many." He blinked. Excuse me? I mostly asked for paper. Evan stood, and I asked who signed my name. Grant turned to him. Are you alleging identity misuse against your spouse? Marissa whispered. Evan. He looked at her for a long second. I'm saying I didn't sign Monday at 9:13. Grant's expression sharpened. Were you in possession of your device? No. Marissa said you left it on the kitchen island. Grant closed his eyes for half a beat. A lawyer hates an untrained client with a fast mouth. Evan said, so you did use it. I didn't say that. You just did. Grant held up a hand. No one is answering more questions in the lobby. Mark stepped in. Good. Then answer mine. Where's my $312,000? Grant looked at Dennis. Mark should not be here. Mark smiled without humor. Mark is very much here. Paula said, so is the buyer whose offer you used. Grant looked at the crowd, and I watched him calculate the mess. Attorney or not, he could read a bad pour. Too many footprints were already in it. Bank counsel arrived at 1:43. Her name was Celia Brandt. She was short, gray-haired, and carried no briefcase, only a red folder under one arm. Russell met her by the teller line and spoke quietly. She listened without interrupting. Then she walked to me. Mr. Harlan, she said, I reviewed the scanned trust assignment. Celia, you have the original writer? Yes. In that box? Yes. Grant Albright's eyes moved to the green metal box. Celia said, do not open it in the lobby. I wasn't going to. She gave me the first faint smile I had seen all day. Good. Dennis said, Celia, this entire event has become prejudicial. She turned. Mr. Vale, I don't represent you. I understand that. I'm not sure you do. Grant stepped in. My client requests a defined scope. Celia nodded. You'll get one. At 2? At 2. She looked at Russell. Conference room. No hallway arguments. No recording except banknotes and title conference line. Marissa said, I want my own attorney. Grant looked at her. Dennis looked at her too, but for different reasons. Celia said, you may call one. Marissa's eyes moved to Evan. Will you wait? He said, for what? For me to get advice. You didn't wait before using my name. She had no answer. Celia checked her watch. We begin in 17 minutes. Grant said, then no document is read until all counsel agrees. Celia's face stayed flat. The bank will read its own lien file. That writer may not be controlling. Then you can say so after we read it. Dennis leaned close to Grant and whispered. Grant listened, then asked, is there an active sale contract? Tom Sutter answered before anyone else, no. Paula added, my offer is withdrawn. Marissa turned on her. You can't withdraw like that. Paula stared at her. Watch me. That closed one door, not the main door, but a useful one. The fake cash urgency had gone from weapon to witness. The buyer had stepped out from under it and left Marissa holding the listing. Evan sat back down. He looked smaller but clearer. I said, you all right? No. That's an honest answer. He looked toward the conference room. What's on the rider? I held the green box with both hands. Enough. Will it ruin her? It will tell the bank what she did. That's not what I asked. I know. He swallowed. I loved her. I know that too. Marissa stood across the lobby with her phone to her ear. Her voice was low and urgent. I need someone now. No, today. At Buckeye Heritage. Yes, Maple Street. Dennis watched her with irritation, not concern. That told me he had lost control of his own house and blamed the house. Mark paced by the brochure rack. Paula sat with Tom near the window. Russell and Celia reviewed the gray archive folder at the end of the teller counter. I looked at the wall clock. 1:56. Ruth's envelope rested under the latch. Her handwriting was hidden now. I liked that. She had already spoken enough for 1 hour. The next words belonged to the bank paper she had saved. At 2 o'clock, Celia Brandt opened the conference room door. All right, she said. Everyone who stays sits down. Dennis moved first. Grant Albright followed him. Marissa came next with no attorney on the line yet, only her phone clutched in her hand. Mark took the chair farthest from Dennis. Paula and Tom stood at the back until Celia nodded them in. Russell sat at the head with the tan file, blue file, gray archive folder, and one blank legal pad. Evan waited for me. I carried the green box in and set it in front of my chair. Celia looked at the speakerphone. First Capital Title is reconnecting. Bank counsel is present. Mr. Vale's counsel is present. This is not a closing. This is a lien authority review. Ann Bell's voice came through a moment later. First Capital Title is on. Russell looked at me. Walter. I unlocked the green box. Nobody spoke. I took out Ruth's envelope and placed it on the table. Then I slid out the folded bank rider, still wrapped in the second page of her letter. Marissa stared at it like she knew paper could burn. Celia said, Mr. Harlan, hand the rider to Mr. Keene. I did. Russell unfolded it once, then stopped. He looked at Celia. She nodded. He laid the page flat, but he did not read it yet. Instead, he reached into the gray archive folder and pulled out a small copy card. We begin with authentication, Russell said. Dennis exhaled sharply. Of course we do. Russell looked at him over the page. You wanted scope. Grant put a hand lightly on Dennis's sleeve. Russell continued. Archive index matches original note number, refinance date, trust assignment, and collateral rider code. Ann Bell said, First Capital Title is listening. Celia leaned back. Read the code. Russell read the letters and numbers. They meant nothing to Marissa. They meant plenty to the bank. They tied that page to the loan like rebar tied a footing. Then Russell turned the rider so the room could see the bank stamp at the bottom. He still had not read the clause. Not yet. He said, before the operative paragraph, the bank will enter the payment record. Dennis frowned. Payment record? Russell opened the TAN file. Internal servicing note. Walter Harlan has paid all renewals, monthly drafts, and tax escrow since refinance. Grant looked at Dennis. Russell read the next line. No payment from Evan Harlan is recorded on this obligation. Evan looked down. Marissa whispered, That doesn't matter. Celia turned to her. It may. Russell touched the rider with one finger. My hand stayed flat on the table. The room leaned toward the paper, and that was where I knew the next words would change the weight of everything. Russell read from the rider, Borrower and secured party of record shall remain Walter Harlan and the Harlan Family Trust, formerly held jointly with Ruth Harlan until written release is executed by bank officer and trust trustee. Marissa blinked twice. Evan did not move. Dennis looked at Grant first, not at the paper. That was the tell. A man who knows he is clean looks at the evidence. A man who knows he is not looks at his lawyer. Russell continued. Evan Harlan is listed as permitted occupant for seasonal residential use. Permitted occupant status conveys no right to transfer, encumber, assign, list, contract for sale, or request payoff instructions. Ann Bell's voice came over the speaker. Please repeat that last phrase. Russell did. Or request payoff instructions. The room went still enough that I heard the old wall vent click above the door. Marissa said, That can't be right. Celia Brandt leaned forward. It is right. No, Marissa said. Evan is family. Celia tapped the rider. Family is not authority. Dennis pushed his chair back an inch. This is an internal bank interpretation. Russell turned the page toward him. It's a signed collateral rider. Grant said, Who signed it? Russell looked at the bottom. Walter Harlan, Ruth Harlan, Bank Officer Martin Greeley, notary seal from Muskingum County. Dennis said, Ruth is gone. I looked at him then. She signed before she was. He had nothing ready for that. Russell read the next paragraph. His voice stayed flat, the way a good loan officer reads bad news. Any attempted sale, transfer, lien release, payoff request, or marketing of collateral by a permitted occupant shall trigger immediate review of title authority. No lien proceeds, release documentation, payoff statements, or escrow instructions shall be delivered to said occupant pending review. Mark let out a low laugh. It was not a happy sound. He said, So there was never going to be payoff money. Dennis snapped, Be quiet. Mark pointed at the page. You sold me a roof with no walls. Grant said, Mr. Feld, stop talking. Mark shook his head. No. I wired $150,000 in January. I added $90,000 in March. Then $72,000 last week. That's $312,000. He said family property closed Friday. Dennis said, Your investment was in a company. Mark said, Then why did the memo say cabin liquidation? Celia looked at Russell. Enter that packet as received from investor. Russell wrote it down. Marissa's hand went to her phone. She checked the screen, then put it face down. She had been waiting for someone to save her. Sometimes the phone stays quiet because there is no one left to call. Evan leaned over the table. Read the line again. Russell looked at him. Which line? The one about me. Russell read it again. Evan Harlan is listed as permitted occupant for seasonal residential use. Evan's mouth worked, but no sound came at first. Then he said, "So I never owned any of it." "No," Celia said, "and I couldn't list it." "No, and I couldn't ask for payoff." "No." He turned to Marissa. "You knew that?" She said, "I knew you were his son. That's not what I asked." Dennis said, "Evan, don't let them split your marriage in a bank room." Evan did not even look at him. He kept his eyes on Marissa. "You used my login." She swallowed. "I was helping us." "You used my name?" "I was trying to fix things." "What things?" Her eyes flashed toward Dennis. There it was. That little glance carried more weight than her whole morning. Mark saw it too. He stood halfway from his chair. "Your father's debt." Grant said, "Sit down." Mark stayed up. "That's what this was." Dennis said, "You're emotional." Mark slapped the memo packet with 2 fingers. "You called him confused, and you called me protected." Confused. There was that word again, trying one last time to stand up straight. I thought of the basements I had poured under half the storefronts on Maple Street. I thought of laser levels, frost lines, rebar chairs, and men younger than me asking where to put their feet. I'd made my living by noticing what would crack before it cracked. I said, "Dennis." He turned slowly. "You said I was too old to notice." Marissa's face tightened. She knew the words had come from her mouth first. Dennis knew it too. He had used her cruelty because it fit his need. I kept my voice low. "You were right about one thing. I didn't notice the first lie." Nobody spoke. I noticed the second. Then I read the file. Russell's pen stopped. Grant looked at me like he wanted me quiet. I understood that. A lawyer with a collapsing story likes silence from everybody except himself. Celia said, "Mr. Harlan, keep it to the documents." "I will." I slid Ruth's envelope forward with 2 fingers. "I want the bank file to show that my wife preserved that rider after the refinance." Grant said, "A private letter is irrelevant." Celia looked at him. "It may go to custody of the original." Russell nodded. "And intent." Marissa said, "No, don't read that." Her voice cracked on the last word. That was the first time she had sounded afraid of Ruth. Not of me, not of the bank. Ruth. Celia looked at me. "Do you want it entered?" "Yes." "Do you want it read?" I put my hand on the envelope. It felt thin under my palm. "I want one line read." Celia took the letter, unfolded it only enough, and read Ruth's handwriting in a clean office voice. "Walter, don't let this cabin become bait for hungry people." Evan closed his eyes. Marissa looked down. Dennis stared at the table, but the table did not help him. Celia refolded the page and handed it back to me. "Entered as owner-provided custody note, subject to review." Grant said, "We object to characterization." "Noted," Celia said. Russell pulled another form from the blue file. "The bank is opening an authority and misuse review on the payoff request submitted Monday at 9:13. Marissa's head came up. "Misuse?" Russell said. "Yes. I didn't misuse anything." Evan said, "You said my phone was on the island." "I didn't say I submitted it." Celia turned to Russell. "What identifier came with the request?" Russell checked the page. Evan Harlan login, device token ending 4821. Email route through his account. Callback number changed to Marissa Harlan's cell. Evan looked at her phone. "You changed the callback." She said, "Because you never answer." He nodded once. "So you did." Grant put both hands on the table. "Marissa, stop answering." She looked at him. "You're not my lawyer." "No," Grant said. "And that is becoming obvious." Dennis hissed, "Grant." Grant turned to him. "You brought me into a bank review with a false ownership assumption. I gave you what I had. You gave me what helped." That landed hard. Mark sat back down, but he was not calm. His knee bounced under the table, rattling the chair leg against the carpet strip. Paula finally spoke. I need the record to show my purchase offer is withdrawn. Ann Bell answered from the speaker. Title has already marked buyer withdrawal. Tom Sutter said, and I'm suspending the listing. Marissa turned on him. You work for us. Tom's face reddened. I work under a license. You put it up. You gave me the photos and authority statement. I told you Evan approved it. Tom looked at Evan. Did you? Evan said, I thought I did. That's not enough now, Tom said. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He had seen a clean commission and skipped the mud under it. A 6% commission on $480,000 can make a man forget to ask one more question. That would have been $28,800. Enough money to fog a windshield. Celia looked at Tom. Your agency records may be requested. Tom nodded. I'll provide them. Marissa said, You're all acting like I stole something. No one answered right away. Then Evan said, You tried to sell my mother's cabin. She snapped, Your father's cabin. He looked at the writer. No, the trust's cabin. That small correction changed him. I could see it in his shoulders. He was not proud. He was not healed. But he had stopped standing on her sentence and started standing on paper. Dennis leaned toward Grant. We need injunctive relief. Grant spoke carefully. Against whom? Against the bank releasing damaging claims. Celia's eyebrows rose. The bank hasn't released anything. The bank is reviewing its own collateral. Dennis pointed at me. He engineered this. I said, I brought the file. You set a trap. No, I said. You listed a cabin you couldn't sell. Mark laughed once. That's the trap. Russell set the writer down in the center of the table. For clarity, Buckeye Heritage will not issue payoff instructions to Evan Harlan, Marissa Harlan, Vale Growth Partners, or any associated purchaser, broker, investor, or escrow agent without trustee approval. Ann Bell said, Title acknowledges, Russell continued. No lien release will be prepared for the current transaction. Paula said, There is no current transaction. Correct, Russell said. Dennis rubbed his forehead. This is temporary. Celia said, The review is temporary. The ownership language is not. Marissa whispered, Dad. He did not look at her. That was the moment she understood something she should have known already. Dennis Vale did not build roofs over people. He stood under other people's roofs and called it strategy. Evan saw it too. He asked, Marissa, did your father know about the writer? She shook her head too fast. No. Dennis said, I knew there was old financing. Evan turned toward him. You told Mark I had operational control. That was business language. You told him Dad was losing track. Dennis said I was describing a succession issue. My mother's name was still on the file. Dennis's eyes narrowed. Your mother is not here. The room changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just changed. Evan stood so fast his chair bumped the wall. Don't use her like that. Dennis leaned back. Sit down. No. Evan. No, Evan said. You said Dad was confused. You said I controlled the cabin. You let Marissa use my login. And now you're talking about Mom like she's a technicality. Marissa reached for his sleeve. Evan. He pulled his arm away. I did not enjoy that. I need you to understand that. Seeing your son wake up in a room full of strangers is not victory. It is a hard mercy. It costs him, and you feel the bill. Celia said, Everyone sit. Evan stayed standing for one more second, then sat. Russell turned to me. Walter, as trustee, do you authorize any sale discussion today? No. Marissa stared at me. You're killing our company. I looked at Evan first. Then I looked at her. I'm not funding it with Ruth's porch. It's a cabin. It's collateral. It's sitting empty most months. It's paid every month. You don't even need it. I folded my hands. That's not how ownership works. Dennis said, Walter, think carefully. If this startup fails, your son loses everything. I asked, what is everything? He frowned. I said, his house in Columbus is leased. His car is leased. The office furniture was vendor financed. The company bank account had $19,600 last Thursday. He told me that himself after Christmas. Evan looked embarrassed, but he did not deny it. I kept going. The cabin taxes were $7,840 this year. The monthly draft is $1,926. Insurance was $3,210. Dock repair after the spring storm was $4,600. I paid everyone. Dennis said, "Parents help children." "Yes," I said. "They don't surrender their dead wife's name to cover your failed equipment leases." Mark said, "There it is." Grant closed his folder halfway. "Mr. Vale, I need to speak with you outside." Celia said, "No hallway arguments. I need privilege consultation." "You can use the small office," Russell said. Dennis stood. "This review is not over." Celia said, "No, but this transaction is." Ann Bell spoke through the phone. "First Capital Title has closed the file pending new authority." Paula said, "Thank you." That was the sound of $480,000 leaving the room. Not cash in a bag, not a dramatic check torn in half, just a woman from Title saying one sentence through a speakerphone on Maple Street. Marissa gripped the edge of the table. "We needed that sale." Evan looked at her. "For what?" She said, "Nothing." "For your dad?" Still nothing. "For us?" Her eyes filled, but she would not let tears fall. Tears would have been another tool if she could have controlled them. She could not. Dennis and Grant stepped into the small office with glass blinds. The blinds were not closed all the way. I could see Dennis talking with his hands. Grant did not talk much. He listened, then shook his head once. That little shake did more than any speech. Mark stood and took out his phone. Dennis saw him through the glass. He came out fast. "Who are you calling?" "My attorney." "You signed a risk acknowledgement." "I signed one for a startup," Mark said. "Not a family property fairy tale." Grant followed Dennis out. "Do not discuss investments in this room." Mark held up his phone. "Too late. My attorney wants the memo." Celia said, "Mr. Feld, please take that call outside." Mark nodded. "Gladly." He looked at Dennis. "You told me Friday." Dennis said, "There are other assets." I looked at him. That sentence had not been meant for me, but it came near me anyway. Celia heard it too. "What other assets?" Dennis froze. Grant said, "No answer." Evan stared at his father-in-law. "What other assets?" Marissa whispered, "Dad, don't." That whisper told me the cabin had not been their only planned plank. Maybe the first one, maybe the biggest one, but not the only one. Celia looked at Russell. "Expand the review scope to any related payoff requests, collateral inquiries, or title letters tied to Harlan Family Trust property." Dennis said, "You have no basis." Celia said, "You just gave me one." Russell wrote another line. I sat there with Ruth's envelope under my hand and felt the shape of it. I had thought the writer was the whole beam. It was only the first exposed joist. Evan turned to me. "Dad, what else is in the trust?" Marissa shut her eyes. Dennis said, "That's a private family matter." Evan did not look at him. "Dad?" I said, "The cabin, the 2 Briar Hook lots behind it, the old shop on County Road 16, and the Maple Street rental." His face went pale. "The shop too?" "Yes." "But you said I could use it for storage." "Permitted use," I said. He looked at the writer. The phrase had found him now. Permitted. Not owned, not controlled, not his to borrow against while I was still standing. Dennis said, "Walter, there is no evidence anyone touched those." Celia turned to Russell. "Check recent inbound inquiries." Russell stood and stepped to the terminal near the credenza. He logged in with his back half turned, then called Janice through the door. "Pull external payoff and lien search requests under Harlan Trust last 90 days. Janice answered from the lobby. "On it." Grant said, "That exceeds scope." Celia said, "The bank is checking its own records." Marissa looked sick now. Evan saw it. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything with the shop." "That's not an answer." "I didn't finish anything." He stared at her. "Finish?" Dennis said. "Marissa." She covered her mouth. That was a new steak, and it did not need dressing. The cabin sale had failed, but a second door had just opened under their feet. Janice came in with 2 printed sheets. Russell took them, read the top one, and his jaw set. Celia said, "Read only the index." Russell nodded. "External title inquiry, Maple Street rental, received from Northridge Commercial Finance, June 21st. I felt Evan look at me. Russell read the second. Collateral value inquiry, County Road 16 shop parcel, received from Vale Growth Partners email domain, June 28th. Dennis said, that could be routine diligence. I said, "You were shopping my shop." He spread his hands. No action was taken. "Because you couldn't get the cabin done first." Grant said, "Dennis, stop." This time Dennis listened. Celia took the 2 sheets and placed them beside the rider. The table was getting crowded now. Rider, memo, payoff request, title inquiry, appraisal photos, Ruth's letter. I had spent my life telling young men that weight adds up. 1 block seems small until there are 20 on the pallet. Russell said, "Walter, do you authorize release of any trust information to Northridge Commercial Finance or Vale Growth Partners?" "No." "Do you authorize any lien inquiry tied to the Maple Street rental?" "No." "County Road 16 shop?" "No." He wrote each answer. Evan said, "Dad, I didn't know." "I believe you." Marissa looked at me fast like that hurt her worse than blame. Evan's voice lowered. "You believe me?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you were careless, not careful." He absorbed that. It was not forgiveness, it was measurement. Celia said, "Buckeye Heritage will issue written notice to external inquirers that no authority exists for those requests." Dennis looked at Grant. "Can they do that?" Grant did not answer right away. Then he said, "They can correct their own records." Paula stood. "I think I'm done here." Celia nodded. "Your withdrawal is noted." Paula looked at me. "Mr. Harlan, I'm sorry I stepped into this. You made an offer on what you were shown. I should have asked more. That makes 2 of us at different times." She gave a small nod and left with Tom. Tom paused at the door. "Walter, I'll send you the full upload trail." Marissa said, "Tom." He looked at her. "My license matters." He left too. That left family, money, and counsel. The 3 hardest things to sort when they get poured into one bucket. Mark came back from the lobby with his phone still in his hand. "My attorney wants preservation of all communications." Grant said, "Send a formal letter." "He is." Mark looked at Dennis. "And he said not to take your calls." Dennis laughed once. "You're making a mistake." Mark said, "No, I made it in January." His face changed after he said that. People like Mark do not enjoy admitting they were taken in. Pride costs smart men almost as much as greed does. Celia gathered the bank papers into 2 stacks. "Here is where we stand. The proposed cabin sale is unsupported. The payoff request is under review. No proceeds will be released to Evan Harlan or Marissa Harlan. No trust collateral inquiry is authorized. External parties will be notified." Marissa said, "Are you accusing me?" Celia looked at her. "I'm stating bank actions. Will you call the police?" Grant stiffened. Dennis stared at her. Celia said, "The bank will follow its procedure." That was enough. Heavy words do not need to be said twice. Evan leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "Marissa, why didn't you tell me?" She wiped under one eye with her thumb. "Because you would have asked your father." "Yes." "And he would have said no." "Yes," Evan said, "because it was his." She turned toward me. "You could have helped us." I said, "I did. For years." "You gave Evan checks when it suited you." "I gave him $40,000 for payroll when his first investor delayed. I paid $9,800 for the patent attorney. I covered $12,400 in health premiums when the company missed a quarter. I did that because he asked me straight." Evan's face worked again. I looked at Marissa. "You didn't ask. You listed." She had no clean answer for that. Dennis's phone began buzzing on the table. Then Mark's buzzed. Then Marissa's, one after another, like a line of breakers tripping. Mark looked at his screen and smiled without warmth. "Investor group text." Dennis grabbed his phone. Grant said, "Do not respond." Dennis read anyway. His face lost color. Evan asked, "What is it?" Mark read from his own phone. "Need confirmation Friday repayment still valid. Heard property issue at Buckeye Heritage. Call now." Marissa sat down hard. Dennis said, "Who told them?" Mark lifted one shoulder. "Money travels faster than manners." Celia said, "This room is done for today." Russell closed the TAN file. "Walter, I'll walk you through the trustee notice after they leave." Dennis stood. "This is not over." I looked up at him. "No," I said, "but it's over at my cabin." He pointed at the writer. "That page doesn't make you wise. No, I said. It just proves I could read. He looked at Marissa then. For the first time, I saw anger land on her instead of through her. You told me Evan had access. She said he did. You told me Walter would fold. Her mouth opened, then closed. Evan stared at her. You said that? Dennis realized too late that he had said it out loud. Grant touched his arm. We're leaving. Dennis pulled away. Not yet. Yes, Grant said. Now. Marissa stood slowly. Evan? He stayed seated. Are you coming? He looked at me, then at the green box, then at the writer still lying on the table. No. She stared at him. I'm your wife. He said, I know. That's it? For today. Dennis said, Come on, Marissa. She did not move until he said her name again. Then she picked up her purse and phone. Her hand shook. I noticed it, but I did not soften. Shaking hands do not undo steady choices. At the conference room door, she turned back. You're choosing him over me. Evan looked tired enough to age in front of me. I'm choosing the truth over the lie you needed. She flinched. Then she walked out with Dennis and Grant. The glass door to Maple Street closed behind them. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Mark remained by the far chair, looking at the memo in his hand. He seemed smaller without Dennis to blame in person. He said, Mr. Harlan, I owe you an apology. I said, You owe yourself better diligence. He nodded. Fair. Then he left too. Celia waited until the lobby settled. Walter, we need trustee signatures on 2 notices. Russell placed the forms in front of me. The first froze release discussion on the cabin. The second denied authority on the Maple Street rental and County Road 16 shop inquiries. I took out my pen. Evan watched me sign. My handwriting is slower now than it was at 40. The letters still line up. A man can slow down and still be exact. Russell said, We'll scan these today. Celia added, Keep the original writer secure. I will. She looked at the green box. You may want counsel for the family side. I have Lou Mercer in Zanesville. Russell smiled faintly. Of course you do. Evan looked surprised. You have a lawyer? I slid the signed forms back to Celia. For 12 years. Why? Because your mother believed love should have paperwork. He looked down. Celia gathered her red folder. Mr. Harlan, the bank will contact you before any further release. Thank you. She left the room, and Russell followed her to the lobby. That left Evan and me at the table with Ruth's envelope between us. He did not touch it. Dad, he said, I don't know how to fix this. You can start by not asking me to. He nodded slowly. I deserve that. You earned it. He took the hit without ducking. I thought I was building something. You may still be. With what? With the part of you that tells the truth. He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. That doesn't pay vendors. No, but lies don't pay them long either. He looked toward the lobby where Marissa had gone. I loved her, he said again. I know. I still do. I know that too. What do I do with that? I put Ruth's letter back inside the envelope. You decide whether love can live where trust got spent. He sat with that for a while. Russell came back in carrying a plain white envelope. Copies for you, Walter. Rider, payment record, authority notices, and inquiry index. I took it. Thanks, Russ. He looked at Evan. I'm sorry it came out this way. Evan said, It came out. Russell nodded. Sometimes that's the only clean part. We walked out through the lobby together. Janice was back behind the teller window. She looked at me once and gave a small nod. Not pity, respect. There is a difference. Outside, Maple Street had warmed under the afternoon sun. Dennis's black sedan was gone. Marissa's car was still there, parked crooked near the curb. Evan stopped beside my truck. She's waiting. I looked across the lot. Marissa sat behind the wheel, staring through the windshield with both hands on top of the steering wheel. For once, she looked like a person who had run out of script. Evan said, Should I talk to her? That's your marriage. I'm asking my father. I opened my truck door and set the green box on the floorboard. Talk in daylight. Don't sign anything. Don't promise money. He almost smiled. That your advice? That's my minimum. He nodded. Then he turned and walked toward her car. I did not follow. A father has to know when the form is stripped and the next pour is not his. I had carried enough wet concrete for one day. I sat in my truck with the door open and watched him lean down by her window. She did not get out. He did not raise his voice. After a minute, she handed him something. A key ring maybe, maybe his house key, maybe nothing that clean. My phone buzzed. Lou Mercer's name lit the screen. I answered. "Walter," he said. "Russell called. You all right?" "I'm upright." "Good. I've got the trust file open." "Then you know the shop inquiry?" "I do. What do you think?" "I think Dennis Vale is about to have a very narrow week." I looked at the bank doors. "Can we tighten the trust today?" "Yes. I can prepare trustee restriction notices before 5. Do it." "Do you want Evan removed as permitted occupant?" I looked across the lot. Evan was standing now away from Marissa's car. His shoulders were bent, but he was still there. Marissa drove off without him. "No," I said. Lou paused. "No, not today." "All right, limited suspension on transfer authority only?" "Yes." "Walter, that's already limited." "Then make it louder." Lou gave a dry chuckle. "That I can do." I ended the call. Evan walked back slowly. His face looked rough. "She's going to her father's," he said. "Okay. She said I destroyed her." "No," I said. "She met the paper." He leaned against the truck. "She wants me to come tonight." "Are you going?" "No." That answer cost him. I heard it. "Where will you go?" He looked toward the west, where Briar Hook Road would take us out past the grain elevator and down toward Dillon Lake. "Can I see the cabin?" I studied him, not to hide. No, not to ask me for money. No, not to tell me what Mom would have wanted. His eyes filled then. "No," he said. "I won't do that." I nodded toward the passenger side. "Get in." We drove out of Miller's Bend without talking much. Maple Street gave way to county blacktop, and the July fields rolled low and green on both sides. Evan kept his hands in his lap like a boy riding home after trouble at school. Halfway to Briar Hook Road, he said, "Did Mom know this would happen?" "No." "Then why the letter?" "She knew people get hungry. For money, for control, for relief, for whatever lets them sleep." He looked out the window. "She called the cabin bait. She told me not to let it become bait." "That's different." "Yes." He nodded. At the cabin, the listing sign was still stuck near the gravel pull-off. Tom's brokerage logo looked bright and stupid against the cedar post I had set myself. Evan got out and stood in front of it. "Can I?" "Go ahead." He pulled it from the ground. It took 2 tries because the stake had hit clay. He laid it flat in the truck bed without bending it. "Tom will want that back," I said. "He can come get it." I did not argue. We walked up the porch steps. Ruth's blue swing hung where it always had, faded at the arms, with one chain squeaking in the same place. The listing photographer had made it look like decoration. It was not. I had hung that swing the week Ruth finished her last year teaching 3rd grade, and she had sat there with lemonade and a stack of library books like she owned all of Ohio. Evan touched the back rail. I forgot how blue it was. "It needs paint." "I can do it." I looked at him. He added, "If you want." That was better. Not much, but better. Inside, the cabin smelled like pine dust and shut windows. Evan walked to the mantel where Ruth kept a smooth lake stone in a little brass dish. Marissa had moved it for the listing photos. I had put it back that morning before the bank. He picked it up, then set it down. "She moved this." "Yes. You noticed." "I noticed the dock first." He turned, and for the first time all day, his laugh sounded real for half a second. "Mom did hate that dock. She called it a lawsuit with planks." She did. Then the laugh left him. "Dad, I'm sorry." There it was, one apology, plain, late. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to mark where the repair might start. I sat in Ruth's chair by the window. "For what?" He looked at me like he knew I would make him say it. "For letting Marissa talk about you like you were slow. For not asking about the loan. For wanting the cabin money before I asked whose cabin it was. I waited. And for letting Mom's name get used. That one mattered most." I nodded. "I hear you. Do you forgive me?" I looked at the porch swing through the window. "Not all at once." He swallowed. "Okay. But you can come back tomorrow and sand that swing." He nodded quickly. I'll be here. Bring work clothes. I will. And Evan? Yeah? No phone passwords to anyone. His mouth tightened. Never again. I stood and took Ruth's envelope from my jacket. I did not open it. I set it in the top drawer of the small pine desk, then locked the drawer with the little brass key Ruth used to keep on a ribbon. Evan watched. You're leaving it here? For tonight. Why? Because this is where she meant it. He looked around the room at the beams, the plank floor, the stone dish, the windows facing Dillon Lake. He was seeing it again, not as an asset, not as a rescue rope, but as a thing built by hands for someone loved. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Russell. Notice issued to Northridge. Vail Growth Partners bounced as inactive. Investor Counsel called bank main line. Referred to legal. I showed Evan the screen. He read it and sat down hard on the arm of the couch. Vail Growth Partners is inactive? Looks that way. That's the company on Dennis's deck. I know. His face went flat with understanding. My startup wasn't the only one in trouble. No. He was using us to keep his dead company breathing. That's what it looks like. Evan put both hands over his face. I let him sit with it. Some truths have to enter without a crowd around them. After a minute, he said, I need to call my board. Yes. And the vendors? Yes. And Mark? Probably with a lawyer. He nodded. Yeah. He stood and walked onto the porch. I heard him dial. His voice came back through the screen door. It's Evan. We need an emergency call tonight. No, don't wait for Marissa. It's about the cabin funding. It was never authorized. I stayed inside. That was his first honest call of the day. Maybe his first honest call in months. I did not need to hear the whole thing. I went to the kitchen sink and ran the water until it cleared the old pipe taste. Then I filled the kettle Ruth had kept on the stove. Habit mostly, but habit can be a mercy when the rest of the day has no shape. Outside, Evan said, No, don't book anything against Friday. There won't be a Friday payout. There it was again, said by him this time. No Friday payout. The lie had crossed town in a suit. The truth had come back in my son's voice from a cabin porch above Dillon Lake. I set 2 mugs on the counter. The water had just begun to heat when tires crunched in the gravel outside. Not Marissa's car, not Dennis's sedan. This engine was older, with a loose belt I could hear before I saw it. Evan stopped talking. I stepped to the window. A white pickup had pulled in behind my truck. Lou Mercer climbed out with a leather document bag in one hand and his shirt sleeves rolled up. Evan looked through the screen door. Dad, why is your lawyer here? I turned off the burner, because I told him to make it louder. Lou did not come up the porch like a man visiting. He came up like a man carrying a weight he meant to set down once. He looked at Evan through the screen. You want a call? Evan lowered the phone. Board emergency. Good, Lou said. Keep it honest. Lou stepped inside and put the leather bag on the kitchen table. He had known Ruth since before Evan was born. He looked toward the little pine desk, then back at me. Is her letter here? In the drawer. Leave it there, he said. We don't need to spend her twice. That line caught Evan. I saw it land. Lou pulled out 3 sets of papers and laid them flat beside the mugs I had not filled yet. His hands were old, but the pages lined up clean. First, Lou said, trustee restriction notice. No transfer authority from Evan, no authority from Marissa, no authority from any spouse, agent, broker, lender, investor, or company claiming through them. Evan said, That's me. That's partly you, Lou said. Don't make it larger than it is. Evan nodded once. Lou slid the second paper toward me. Second, demand to withdraw all unauthorized listing materials. It goes to Tom's broker, the MLS office, and Mark's office. Mark too? Evan asked. He circulated the sale package, Lou said. He gets the broom. Then Lou touched the third paper with one finger. Third, preservation letter to Dennis Vail and Vail Growth Partners. Evan's face changed. For what? For the deck, the emails, the texts, the investor promises, and the payoff request. I said, Russell said Vail Growth Partners bounced inactive. Lou looked at Evan. Inactive since April. Dissolution notice filed in June. Your father-in-law's pitch deck still used it in July. Evan shut his eyes. He knew. Lou said, "That's for counsel to prove. Tonight, you stop repeating anything he told you." Evan put his phone on the table and hit speaker. A man's voice came through thin and sharp. "Evan, are you there?" "I'm here," Evan said. "My father's attorney is present." The voice paused. "Then we should reschedule." Lou leaned toward the phone. "No, you should listen." Evan looked at me. I gave him nothing but room. He said, "The cabin sale was unauthorized. The trust controls the property and the note. There won't be payoff proceeds to my company." A woman on the call said, "Marissa told us title was clean." Evan's jaw worked. It wasn't hers to say. Another voice said, "Dennis guaranteed bridge repayment from family property." Lou picked up the phone. "Send that guarantee to my office before 9 tonight." "Who is this?" "Lou Mercer, Walter Harlan's counsel." The call went quiet. Then the first man said, "We'll send it." Evan whispered, "I'm sorry." Lou said, "Save apologies for people, Evan. Send documents to lawyers." That was Lou. He could be gentle when it mattered, but he never wrapped steel in ribbon. Evan ended the call and sat down. "I think I just lost the company." I poured water into the mugs. "Maybe." He looked up. "That's all? You may have lost the version built on my cabin." He stared at the phone. That was the only version left. Then it was already cracked. A vehicle came fast up the gravel drive. Lou looked at me. I looked through the window. Dennis's black sedan stopped behind his white pickup, and Marissa got out before the engine shut off. Evan stood. "No." Lou said, "Stay inside unless you can talk straight." Marissa came up first. Her eyes were red, but her chin was high. Dennis followed with his phone in his hand. He saw Lou through the screen door and stopped. "You called counsel to the cabin?" Dennis said. Lou opened the door. "Walter did." Marissa pointed at Evan. "You just told the board I committed fraud." Evan said, "I told them the sale wasn't authorized." "You humiliated me." "No," he said. "The documents did." Dennis pushed past her. "Walter, this is reckless. Investors are calling my house." Lou stepped onto the porch. "Good. Then they know the number works." Dennis glared at him. "You're interfering with business." Lou held up the preservation letter. "I'm preserving evidence." Marissa looked at the paper. "Evidence of what?" Lou said, "Let's start with the doc." She went still. That small pause said more than shouting. Evan saw it too. He turned to her slowly. "What doc?" he asked. Lou took a folded copy from his bag and laid it on the porch rail. The listing used a doc photograph from an old Buckeye Heritage appraisal package, internal file, not public advertising, not on the cabin parcel. Marissa said, "Tom pulled photos." Lou shook his head. "Tom's office says the seller provided them." Dennis said, "That's not proof." "No," Lou said, "it's a door. Russell Keene is already opening it." Evan looked sick. "Marissa." She stared at Dennis, not at Evan. Dennis snapped, "Don't look at me like that." Lou turned the page. The appraisal package was copied and marched through Evan's borrower portal. Same morning, a payoff letter was requested. Evan said, "I didn't do that." Marissa's mouth moved without sound. I said, "You used his login." She finally looked at me. "We're married." "That's not a signature." Dennis stepped close to the porch rail. "You think you're clever because you found a bank writer?" I looked at his shoes. Fine leather, dust on the soles now. He had brought city feet to a clay road and thought the clay would care. "No," I said. "I think you borrowed against a roof you didn't own." His face hardened. "You're costing your son everything." Evan answered before I could. "You used me." Dennis turned on him. "I kept you afloat." "You kept yourself afloat with my name." Marissa said, "Evan, stop." He looked at her. "Did you know Vale Growth Partners was inactive?" She looked away. "That was enough. You have to understand silence can be a full confession when it comes at the right time." Evan's shoulders dropped. "You knew." Dennis said, "Companies restructure." Lou said, "Inactive companies don't pledge family assets." Dennis lifted his phone. "My attorney will respond." Lou handed him the preservation letter. "He can start with this." Dennis took it because men like that cannot refuse paper in front of witnesses. His hand bent the corner. Lou noticed. So did I. Marissa stepped toward Evan. "Come home." Evan shook his head. Not tonight. I'm your wife. I heard you the first time. She looked toward me then. This is what you wanted. No, I said. I wanted supper in my kitchen without my dead wife's cabin on the market. Her face twisted. You're enjoying this. I was tired enough to tell the plainest truth. I hate every inch of it. That stopped her longer than anger would have. Dennis pulled her arm. We're done here. Lou said, one more thing. Dennis turned back. Lou pointed toward the truck bed. The sign stays until Tom's broker retrieves it. Chain of custody. Nobody takes it from this property except the brokerage or council. Dennis laughed once. A yard sign? The listing ID is on it, Lou said. The QR code points to the file. The file points to the upload source. Marissa looked at the truck bed then. She had thought the sign was trash. It was not. It was a nail with her fingerprint on the head. Dennis walked her back down the steps. He opened the sedan door and said something I could not hear. She did not answer him. She only looked at Evan one last time. Evan stood still beside the screen. He did not go to her. He did not wave. He did not punish her with words. He just stayed where he was. The sedan backed out too fast and threw gravel against the grass. Lou watched it leave. He'll call 3 lawyers before he hits Maple Street. Will that matter? Evan asked. Only to the lawyers. Lou came back inside and put a pen in front of me. Walter, sign here. I signed the trustee restriction. Then I signed the withdrawal demand. Then I signed the preservation letter. Lou notarized what needed notarizing with the small stamp from his bag. Evan watched the stamp come down. Can I sign anything? Lou studied him. Yes. He slid over a short statement. Evan read it twice. This says I didn't authorize the listing. Correct. It says my login was used without my consent. Only sign it if that's true. It is. Then write the truth and live with where it goes. Evan signed. His hand shook worse than Marissa's had, but the name was legible. Lou took the paper and tucked it into a folder. That helps your father. It may help you too. Evan asked, does it help Marissa? Lou did not soften it. No. Evan sat with that answer. He loved her. I knew it. Love does not turn off because a page turns over. But he did not chase her this time, and that mattered more than any speech he could have made. My phone buzzed again. It was Tom. I answered. Walter. His voice sounded rough. I'm sorry. About what part? All of it. That's a lot of ground. He breathed out. I'm driving out now for the sign. Broker pulled the listing. MLS marked it unauthorized. I sent the upload log to Russell and Lou. Lou held out his hand. I put the phone on speaker. Tom said, Marissa provided the photo packet by email. Dennis was copied. I should have checked title before it went live. Lou said, bring that email. I printed it. And don't call Dennis. I won't. Tom arrived 20 minutes later in a gray SUV with his broker's name on the door. He looked smaller without a sales smile. He lifted the sign from my truck bed with both hands like it had weight beyond plastic and metal. Walter, he said, I failed you. I said, yes. He nodded. The listing is down. Lou said, show me. Tom opened his laptop on the hood of his SUV. The screen glowed in the evening shade. Where the cabin listing had been, a red status line sat across the page. Withdrawn. Authority disputed. Tom printed the upload log from a little portable printer on his passenger seat. It buzzed and spit out warm paper. Lou read it under the porch light. Sender? I asked. Lou looked up. Marissa Harlan, copied to Dennis Vale. Evan turned and walked to the edge of the porch. He gripped the rail with both hands. Tom said, the doc image file name matches the old appraisal. Lou folded the page. That closes that loop. Tom took the sign and put it in his cargo area. Before he shut the hatch, he peeled the Bright Writer strip off the top. Cash only, no contingencies. He held it for a second, then handed it to Lou. Lou said, thank you. Tom drove away slow. No gravel kicked up that time. After he left, Evan came back to the table. Dad, I don't expect to stay here. Good. He looked hurt, then nodded. Okay. I said, you can come tomorrow to work. His eyes lifted. I said work, I told him. Not sleep, not hide, not wait for me to solve Columbus. I understand. Do you? I think so. No. You understand when you show up with sandpaper and no pitch. He rubbed both hands over his face. I'll be here at 8. 7:30. 7:30, he said. Lou put his papers away. Walter, I'll file these before I go home. At this hour? He looked at me. Electronic recording doesn't care about supper. He closed the bag and paused by Ruth's desk. She'd be proud of the file. I looked toward the locked drawer. She built that file. She built more than that. Evan heard it, and for once he did not speak over it. Lou left just after sunset. Evan stayed on the porch while I washed the 2 mugs we had barely used. He made 2 more calls, one to Mark, short and stiff, one to a vendor in Columbus, longer and worse. I can't promise Friday, he said. I won't lie to you. Send the invoice list tonight. That was all I needed to hear. When he came back inside, he looked worn down to the studs. Can you drive me to town? Where? The Maple Street Motel. You sure? No, he said, but I'm going. I locked the cabin drawer and turned off the kitchen light. At the door, Evan looked back at the blue swing through the front window. I forgot Mom sat there every Sunday. She missed some Sundays. He almost smiled. Not many. No. We drove toward Miller's Bend with the windows down. The night smelled like cut grass and lake mud. Evan held his phone but did not stare at it. That was new. At the motel, he opened the truck door and stopped. Dad? Yeah. Not all at once. I remember. Good. I'll earn what I can. That's the only kind that holds. He stepped out, then leaned back in. 7:30. I nodded. Bring a mask too. That old paint dust bites. He shut the door and walked into the motel office with 1 bag and no audience. Before I went home, I stopped by Buckeye Heritage. The lobby was closed, but lights still showed in Russell Keene's office. Through the glass, I saw Russell hand Janice a printed notice. She unlocked the bulletin case by the teller line and slid out the old broker contact sheet. In its place, she posted a new page with 3 bold words at the top, Trust Property Protocol. She smoothed the corners flat with her palm, then she turned off the lobby light. The next morning, Evan was at the cabin at 7:20 with work pants, a respirator, and 2 packs of sandpaper. He did not knock. He stood by Ruth's swing and waited. I handed him a scraper. Start with the arms. He took it. Yes, sir. By noon, blue curls of old paint covered the porch boards. I opened the new can and stirred until the color came up even. A man does not have to swing a fist when the truth has its own weight. Evan brushed the first clean stroke along the rail. I held the chain steady in my hand.